Hello, everybody, and the bot should be working, he says. The bot should be working. We can all hope the bot is working. Yay. So, with that being said, we are joined by Runon, by Foxo, and
Loud, very loud.
I'm presuming
Okay, good.
I'm presuming Dragon is having a lovely chat somewhere because he was here a while back in somewhere else in another of the chats, and then he's disappeared.
Food. He's having a
Food.
lovely chat with his food.
That's good.
When you get a chance, I have sent you the
I know you
stream
sent me the
together.
collaboration thing, Runon. Don't worry.
Okay, I'm just flagging it because sometimes Twitch is not very good at making notifications.
Oh, it's going to get even more fun because for those who don't know, the Japan trip is now live. The Japan trip, the details are now live. The website is now working. The official launch, by the way, we're in the soft launch period. The official proper launch is Wednesday. Why is it Wednesday? Because there's going to be a video coming out. It's going to be the first of the dreadnoughts that might have been with me and Drac having that discussion. I'm still deciding whether I'm going to add in any pictures of the dreadnoughts or whether I'm just going to leave it without the pictures and just go via descriptions. Because in a way, to add in, because of the way it was recorded, to add in pictures now, I'd have to break it all up, and it would have these weird 5-second silences where you can't hear anything. You just to get this picture flash up, and I'm sort of going, I'm not sure that's going to be good. That's a good thing to have.
You can't just edit the audio track into the background of the video?
That's an interesting question. With the software I have,
Fair enough.
Realistically not. I'd have to run it through OBS to do that, and I don't like doing that in OBS. I could split off. I don't want to split off the soundtrack and remap it, which I've done before on videos. Trust me, I've done that before on videos. But these videos are 2.5 hours long.
Yeah.
So if I make small mistakes getting it back, putting it back together, it's going to add up quite a lot by the end. Hello, everyone. Hello. So yes, they're having a few discussions recently today already about some of the stuff I've added in Twitch, because I added in the ability to make another chatter in the chat go quiet for 5 minutes for a value of 7,500 points. And the reason I added it in was I saw other people had done that, and I thought it was quite funny. It was quite a funny thing to do. But I have set the rules, so it can only be used on you can only use it once in a chat in any session, and you can only have it happen to you once in any session. So yeah, and it only stops you talking in the chat for 5 minutes. Theoretically, if the rules are all set up correctly. It's fun we have the stuff in Twitch. So let's start off with the first question. How many sailors would the modern Royal Navy need per year to keep afloat? Does that mean you need to recruit per year? Ooh. You see, the thing is, that can change year on year depending on the number of people exiting the Royal Navy, which can change depending on deployments, because usually people postpone their leaving the service till after a major deployment. So when you have a major trip like this year out to Japan, lots of people will have stayed in there, and lots of senior, especially senior NCOs, but also senior ratings who are coming to the end of the contract, will have extended their contract till they get back from the trip. And then, so you'd need, if you're judging by this year, you need less people than you probably need next year when the trip's over, and a fair number of the people who are just doing one contract are probably going to go, you know what, I've done my time in service, I'm going to go now. But as a rule, I think it's roughly the Royal Navy. It's about 2,000, but it's as I said, it's a wiggly wobbly line. It's a wiggly wobbly line, and also there's the fact that for the first time the Navy's starting to sort of grow, which means it's supposed to be taking in more than it has been recently, where it's been letting people go without replacing them. What about the Baltic makes Sweden use ASW rockets? It's shallow. So depth charging rocket attacks still work. It's the same in the Mediterranean, realistically. The shallow areas, it's a perfectly suitable methodology for using it in those areas.
Don't the Russians still use rocket-launched anti-submarine torpedoes?
Various people still work on rocket launched torpedoes. They also sometimes still the Russians also still use rocket-based ASW weaponry as well as depth charges, sort of rocket mortars. It's a system which works well. It's just fundamentally it's a very simple system. It fires a depth charge over a long distance, drops it in the water. We know depth charges work on submarines. If you're in shallow enough water, that coming down is going to ruin your day. That's it. Hello, Jonathan Moon. Hello, Timu. Hello. Well, I've got the combined chat has disappeared for me for some reason. Hello, Paul Amos, Fun Police. Hello, thank you, Von Bismarck, for the super chat. They're all really very appreciated at the moment because, thanks to Lawyer Fun and Everything Fun, we've got to find another month's worth of interest for the bridging loan. And the mortgage still hasn't been allowed to go through. So, yeah. You remember I paid for a whole load of things for the house because the mortgage was going to come in and that was going to pay me back. And that was like 6 weeks ago. Yeah. I love my life. Thank you, everyone. Fun times.
As a certain chief, has a certain older chief come back onto communications networks?
Yes! Yes. They have done. Apparently Vegas was lovely. Wayne, how would you rebuild the Russian Navy assuming the war ends with no more losses?
Which war?
Look, if the current conflict between Russia and Ukraine ends with no more losses for their ships, they've got to rebuild it root, stem, and branch, basically. The whole thing needs to be rebuilt. You need to start off with training. You need to make sure the viability of the force is unquestioned. You've got to make sure the units they have done are well repaired, well maintained state, and actually are well repaired and well maintained. Not just talked about being well repaired and maintained. They actually are. That their components are actually what they're supposed to be, not sold off to someone. You then have to start building new stuff, and they've got some successful frigate lines, they've got some good submarine lines, and those would be what I would start off with, but they've also got to have an air defense destroyer. They have to have an air defense ship that can go to sea, and especially as they're taking a gap of carry operations. They've got their Mistralskis, LHDs coming, which are going to be an interesting capability for them to have. The trouble is they've not got a lot of them, and they need flagships that are visible flagships, not submarines, visible flagships, for their Northern Fleet, their Pacific Fleet, and their Black Sea Fleet. And they got 2 of those coming. So they're short of flagship. They're also their older ships, their big cruisers, etc. They have shown their age and are worn out. So there are going to be a lot of hard choices. And it would not be a task I would relish. Well, it would be a task I'd relish in a situation other than Russia. in Russia, I'd likely end up getting killed for being not corruptible enough for them.
Or too
By the way,
competent.
I would never say I'm not capable of being corrupted. It's just it requires an awful lot of money. Okay, I'm like the long history of my family. We are incredibly loyal. That doesn't mean we're unbribable. That means to bribe us is incredibly expensive. We're talking figures which have $1 billion in them. And
On the other hand,
at least 2 digits
my
in front of that billion. Okay? So we're
uh,
talking minimum 10, and that's for a many minor thing. Okay? We know how expensive we are, and we believe we're worth it. That has been my family's motto for a long time when it comes to corruption.
um, whereas I have a very low corruption ceiling, but my price is very, very low. I joke that I can be bribed with Cheez-Its and Iron Brew, mainly just to do one task order in front of another one. But yes, I have had coworkers bribe me with Cheez-Its before.
That's fine. I often take payment for doing tasks of my friends and colleagues in Chinese takeaways.
It's more respectable than head pats.
Look,
Yes, Fox, we all know
whatever floats your boat, and in nicest way. As far as I understand it, there are many very veritable people of much higher claim and support who work for head pats. So don't worry about it.
Unfortunately, certain management agencies forgot that they actually need to pay out those head pats and not just keep them in their head pat hoard.
Mm-hmm.
Do you know where your mother is?
She's still in the UK. Currently, she's oscillating between who she's more annoyed with. The lawyer for the buyers of the house, the bridging loan company, that despite the sale going through, it's just not been the money's not just been passed across yet. Now still charging interest when she thought they should do the nice thing and not, or the shoujo. And it's
Wait,
honestly
she expected the bank to be nice?
You forget, my family were bank managers for some of them have been bank manager generation, and they were understanding and sensible bank managers, which meant they had very loyal customers. But that was in a period when people could swap banks and expect a different level of treatment. Nowadays, when you know you're going to be treated treated terribly wherever you go, you don't swap banks. Michael Cooch, you are correct. Cheez-Its and Iron Brew. We found Runon's price on a Minecraft server. All that talk of 10k was just a negotiating tactic. Yep.
No,
you heard it here from Michael Cooch.
No.
You are on the ball as always, Michael.
No.
On the ball as always.
There's a difference between a bribe to rearrange priorities and a work order to begin with. The Minecraft server is a work order, which is going to require a purchase order, which is going to require a contract, i.e., of, a couple thousand. What was I saying? About 5,000 to 10,000 Great British pounds for 1 year of operation and support.
Now,
if there were multiple people asking me to run a Minecraft server, which thankfully there are not, this is not a challenge chat, then that's where the bribe of Iron Brew and Cheez-Its would come in to see whose server I give the most attention to.
And here was me just going to recommend a log cabin down the road, which is going for sale. There is literally actually on my road that way. There is a log cabin, and it's an old summer home, but it's a 3-bedroom log cabin, built Canadian style, imported at the UK, and it's down the end of my road, and it's going for 110 grand, including property, all hooked up, and it's got solar panels, etc. They're 5-year-old solar panels, etc. So not great, and batteries, but it's all there, and it's going for 110 grand at the moment. And the reason it's going for 110 grand is because it's not hooked up to gas, so it's all electric.
You do
I got
realize
that.
that that's about 110 grand more than I have, right?
Yeah, but the thing is, I was thinking on a electrician's salary, that would be a very cheap mortgage. 110
You,
grand
you
for a 3 bedroom property.
you are aware that I haven't even gotten an interview yet, let alone any of the other
Yeah, I know, but
niceties.
those would be the other. Those could be all over depending all over the country. But yeah, it's I have a ongoing thing night with the estate agents in this road. Whenever I go for my wanders around the area, because I'm doing that for to keep fit and keep healthy. I'm building my strength up through walking. I sometimes I talk to the estate agents and I manage to wander around these places and nosy beak inside, and it's a nice one. It's a really nice property.
I've just realized that I don't have any audio output on my stream. Hi, chat. I'm very smart.
We have next question is for Dragon and Foxo, but as Foxo's here solo, it's all for her. Thoughts on the new friendships announced for Azure Lane 7th English Anniversary event, Secrets of the Abyss.
Oh. I meh. I
That
mean,
does
their
actually.
friendships and like they've. I'm just gonna say there's friendships already that do their style better. Yeah, Dragon could tell you more, but he's gone walkies.
I thought you went walkies, he went flyies, because he's a dragon.
There are many subsets of dragon. It's possible that
Well, yes,
dragon
but
fits
the
the
issue is
But
drink.
Foxo is not going to settle for a flightless dragon. There is no point in having a dragon if it's flightless. She would not settle for such a beast.
I mean,
Nope. Not gonna say that. Not gonna say that. Nope. Nope. Not on this channel. Nope. Nope.
I mean,
Nope.
my dragon is a bit rotund. He can't fly for long.
uh, right then, next question. Rune von Bismarck. What do we know about the mine that took out Admiral Makarov and his flagship during the siege of Port Arthur? Ooh. Well, what do we know?
It went off with a bang.
The interesting thing is who laid the mine. Who laid the mine?
Ooh. I just got 2 follows real quickly. So thank you, Slayer, and thank you, Carrot, for the follow.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Now, the thing is, here's the question with Ham's minds. As Petropavlovsk moves closer to the harbour entrance, she apparently detonates a Japanese mine that they'd failed to clear. And this was probably a standard Japanese mine, which was based on the standard British mine at the time. Theoretically. But you have to remember, there's both the Japanese mines and there are also other mines there. Because defensively they've put out some mines. And it's an interesting scenario. There is a possibility that, of course, it might have been a stray Russian mine which had got out of its field. It probably was a Japanese mine, because the Japanese were being far more thorough with their mining than the Russians were. They were. And the thing is, by chasing Hayachiro out to sea, and then being forced back, well, he got himself into trouble. But it's a pretty standard mine. And unfortunately, where it hit, immediately caused secondary explosions. Which caused Petropavlovsk to sink. And took everyone with her. Everyone aboard with her. Now, the thing is, Petropavlovsk is launched in 1894. She is from a class of 3 ships. Fairly decent design. She's got a decent enough belt, but it doesn't cover that deep in her. It really doesn't. And if you consider where all her magazines are, yeah, I would not like to be hit by a mine if I was in her. I just wouldn't. She also has 12-inch. She has 4 12-inch guns, but her turrets have 10 inches of steel on them. Nice to have armor. Oh yeah. I forgot to change the questions to open. I was receiving so many. I thought I must have. Michael Cooch. Ironclads of the 1880s had weapons capable of great theoretical ranges, but what would practical battle ranges have been? What they could see. Remember, they don't have any real advantages in terms of sighting, in terms of ranging and director firing. That's all still being developed at that point. So it's what can they see? If they can see it and make it out clear enough to target it, they can pretty much engage it. If they can't, they can't. So it's weather dependent, it's curvature of the Earth dependent, and it's geographically dependent if they are anywhere which has high ground.
It'll also be dependent on the quality of optics too.
In 1880s, they don't really have much in the way of. It's going to sound strange. They have high quality optics for the time, but when we start comparing those optics to the optics they have in World War I, let alone the optics available in World War II or present day, I really don't feel comfortable describing them as being capable. Bowmill Boy, you managed to run into the 90-second cooldown.
Yes. Because otherwise we get the problem that we have over on Fleet server where it's just one solid slug of questions from one person.
Well, it used to be, and I don't want to say this in a way which upsets them, so please, Knight, this is not targeted at you, but because the way Knight used to come with questions prepared, and still does come with questions prepared, but now there's this 90-second rule, includes so many of them. And I've so got to get a new camera to sort this stuff flickering out, because it's I don't think it's the cables. I tried some new cables. They cost me 20 quid. But yeah, I'm going to leave you with the question quickly. The reason I'm leaving you with the question quickly is that I need to get something which is just gassing me out in the garden. Come on, we're going to the garden.
Huh.
Dogs and biochemical warfare.
So, what was the question?
I have no idea. I've been playing with plastic crack. Getting it into a fine powder and then, So we've pretty much answered Michael Cooch's question. So I would say our next question is going to be from Knight 6831. The ships announced. Okay, so that's just you've answered that. Wayne's World of Science and Technology. How would you rebuild the Ukrainian Navy post-war? That's going to be highly dependent upon what Ukraine looks like post-war.
Big question: are they able to keep Odessa?
Yeah, because like if they've got an extremely narrow Black Sea frontage, then they might want a riverine fleet far more than they want anything that is deep water, green water fleet.
I honestly can't see a way of Russia getting to Odessa now, at the moment. Things would have to change massively.
Dr. Clarke will probably have a far better way in on this once he's fully back at keyboard. But yeah, it's to me that question. The answer to that question is entirely contingent on what does a post-active hostilities Ukraine look like.
Look, as much as Russia might want to get to Odessa, in the nicest way, there is sufficient artillery now between them and Odessa that, frankly, any advance the Russians make on it is probably beyond their current and foreseeable futures. Unless the war lasts a lot longer and things change drastically. And so far, things haven't been changing necessarily in Russia's favour. And the reason I say things haven't been changing necessarily in Russia's favour is because for every problem Ukraine has, and boy do they have problems, Russia has the same problems and they're about 10 times worse. People talk about corruption in Ukraine. Corruption in Russia is far more problematic. There is corruption in Ukraine, no one's claiming there isn't. Compared to Russia though, it's amateur hour. It really is amateur hour. With Russia, the thing that people are presuming they have on their side is their population and their willingness to chuck a lot of people away. But the thing is, we know they've been relying on lying about their population stats for a while. So has the Chinese. So there have been lots of nations that have been lying about population stats. In fact, the only thing nations tend to lie more about than population stats is their strength of their economy. And both of these ones are usually, even if they're not lies, they're usually sufficiently disconnected from the truth because of the way they present the data, that it's not necessarily there. And for the Russians, the problem is they are still trying to run, to an extent, a peacetime economy with wartime recruitment, and it's stressing them out too much. There are too many exemptions. So you think about it, you go, well, recruit. They've got all these people to recruit from. Yes, but they've given out so many exemptions. How many people have they really got to recruit from? There's a classic example of, there was, I think, an American who'd emigrated to Russia, who ended up in service in the Russian army and ended up getting himself killed. And you sit there and go, why would you be recruiting him in the first place? Look at his age, his health before he even got there. In a nice way, this is not someone you recruit, and it's going to be an instant headline if anything happens to him, which is not going to make you look good. And the Russians do understand that. So the fact they're going down that list, I know his death is... I know, Timo, some people have been claiming his death is not confirmed, but there have been enough reliable sources stating it that I'm willing to give it an edge. If he's not, then I'm happy for his family, and that's a good thing for his family, but yeah.
Walter brought us... there are enough civilian assets and investment opportunities where in Ukraine, in a post-active conflict scenario, that the internal rebuilding will likely see a lot of foreign interest, whether that be from governments or private entities.
I'd also say, Walter, I'd also say, Walter, and before we get into your statement on this, in the nicest way, the Navy and the Army are still going to be very high up on that list, because in any scenario where this war ends, Ukraine is going to be in the kind of peace where both sides are rapidly rearming, and neither sure it's going to last.
Yeah. Kiev is going.
It's not going to be a case of. It might be a case of they would prefer to prioritize other things. They probably would, but if they don't spend the money on the Navy, they're going to be in trouble. The kind of Navy they're probably going to build is probably going to be a sea denial force, which is probably going to be submarine based, and UAV and UUV based, and various maybe some small fast attack boats. But it's going to be all about sea denial and to provide them with defense of their area. It's not. That's what it's going to be focused on. Maybe some light amphibious capability, probably things like CB-90s.
Kiev is going to want to muscle up as much as possible to try and make the civilian investors feel confident that their investments are going to be protected.
Yeah.
And
I'm gonna
additionally,
back down the camera again.
there's going to be significant domestic political pressure to be as at least apparently muscular as possible to ward off other aggression. And additionally, even after a peace settlement, Moscow may decide that it would be better to repick the fight with Ukraine if they think it will divert internal tensions outwards instead of inwards.
Yeah, so
And somebody
basically,
was saying something about fun police, the industrial and military draw from the same pool of people too, right? Not necessarily. It depends upon a lot of what your industry is, but there are for your ground troops, you want like high school graduates. For your industry, a lot of times what you want is technical school graduates, which are 4 odd years older, or college graduates, again, 4 odd years older, because you start, especially nowadays, and it's going to vary industry to industry, nation to nation, but you need more people who are on that SME path and not that generalist path. Whereas the Army or the Navy or the Air Force will take somebody fresh out of college and begin training them towards a subject matter expert level.
considering the relationship the Ukrainians are building with the Finns and the amount of work they put in with them and the Swedes, I can see them going for a very heavy what I would call national service model, with a large reserve pool providing them the mate of their manpower for wartime. So they'll have a very small kernel of personnel who will be relatively to the size of their armed forces, who will be their regular armed forces, and they will still have a very large, very very large armed forces, but they will be majoritively reservist. Now,
Alrighty, can I take a stab at Hell Breaks Loose question?
yeah, go on.
I think the U.S. Coast Guard Hell Breaks Loose. I think the U.S. Coast Guard cutters have at least 16 VLS cells, mostly quad packed. What is your take? You are misinformed. The current Legend class do not have VLS. They may have a space in the hull for it because the Wikipedia has the lovely line of designed for but not with additional weapons and sensors.
Look, in nice way, the Legend class are like the Royal Navy. They are fitted for, not with things. This is the trouble with the US and the US Coast Guard and Royal Navy spending too much time together.
But Legend is not currently fitted with VLS tubes.
You can actually see, if you look at their deck on the Berghoff, etc., you can see where it would go. You can see the slot they have. I do think it is about 16 cells. I wouldn't be surprised, judging by that space. And yes, it probably would be quad-packed ESSM if they were going for anything. They probably have the capability to take Naval Strike Missile or Harpoon elsewhere on the hull. There are various places where that could be fitted. But yeah, these ships are only actually armed with guns at the moment, and I'm not even sure realistically whether I'd consider it sensible to arm with sensible guns, because unless the way they're kind of outgunned by their Irish OPV counterparts. We'll leave that to one side, though.
That's a sorry state of affairs.
Listen, the Coast Guard is very much the red-headed stepchild of the United States deployable forces, and it's even the red-headed stepchild of Homeland. So,
Dwayne Tap. What if the Royal Navy had 6 Queen Elizabeth class, which is 4 less than they did historically, 2 admirals and 2 renowns? What would I have a 1927 Washington Treaty? The Washington Treaty was 1922. So I'm presuming you mean the 1922 treaty, because I don't know of a 1927 treaty which is going to have that impact. So okay, so you've lost 4 of the Queen Elizabeth. You've lost 4 of the battleships. Somehow you've got no. You've not got 4 battleships. You've got an extra admiral. You've got the same number of renowns. It doesn't realistically have much of an impact, other than probably the Royal Navy maybe gets there to. It has to keep some 13.5-inch ships in the service longer. Possibly still get the 2 nail rods, but are probably building ships again at the same time as as soon as the Americans start building theirs. So there's probably, how do I put this? There are probably Royal Navy ships which are analogous with the North Carolinas in terms of their being laid down. Probably laid down a bit earlier, considering the age of the Royal Navy ships versus the age of the American ships. Probably we're talking laying down ours first in our first pair in 1936. Which will be interesting, because at that point it's going to have 9 16-inch guns. Because there's no second London Naval Treaty. But yeah, it's more going to be a problem for the British in that it's going to mean that they're going to theoretically be outgunned compared to their American counterparts, because the Americans have quite so many 14-inch gun ships, and they have quite so many 14-inch guns on them in service, which is not going to be. Let me put it this way: one of the reasons why the British government were prepared to accept and were able to get away with accepting parity on paper, other than the fact that they knew the US Congress was never going to fund it enough, was that we had 13 15-inch gun ships. So you had the 10 battleships, the 2 R-class battle cruisers Renowns, and you had Hood. And
Cap has put forward that yes, it should have been 1922, and they also meant 6 and 6 QEs and Rs.
Oh, 6 and 6. Okay, rather than 6 QEs. So they have 12 now. So now they have 16 ships. Okay, then the treaty tonnage limits are going to get changed. At that point, if I go to my Washington Treaty, Washington ships a presentation, that's that particular Excel spreadsheet. Because if you have 2 hoods, that also creates a problem. You can ignore 1. Ignoring 2 is going to be very difficult. And the British are still going to want some 16-inch gunships.
So the building holiday probably doesn't happen.
Well, you see, the British will claim they'll get there too, and the Americans will probably have to get 2 as well.
There may be a section that details a flagship battleship that can be 40-odd thousand tons.
Yeah, I'm basically I'm working it out and adding in equals some. So at that level, the British would have 430. Let's see. So the British would have 442,000 tons. If you've got 6 Rs, 6 Queen Elizabeths. Hang on, no. I also need that. The British would have 483,000 tons. So it would be 483,000 tons, and they'd want at least 2. I think you probably end up with a treaty which is it might end up being the 20 ships treaty. It might end up, rather than 15, it might end up being 20, because the British are not going to want to drop anything. They're not going to want to cut. They might accept cutting Tiger, but that still takes them down to 454,000 tons, which means they've got about 70,000 tons of building the two Nelrods. But if they get the two Nelrods as well with their treaty limitations and all those ships in, they suddenly got 16 15-inch gun ships, including two hoods, two admirals, and two 16-inch gun ships, and suddenly, yeah, there's going to be issues. People are going to be worried. You also got four very capable, you've got four 15-inch gun battle cruisers to work with. So yeah, that's going to cause problems. My suspicion is that the treaty doesn't happen, or if it does happen, you're on a 20 ship rather than 15 ship limit for the British and the Americans. And if you're on a 20 ship limit, then it's a different scenario. The British probably build four Nelrod style ships. Although again, if they're building them it's going to sound strange. If you're building four ships, you might accept slightly less armor and go for the fast battleship status. Hellbreaks Loose. I guess you said you meant to write should. Well, they could do. They seem to have the slot for it. They are fit, as far as I understand, they're fitted for not with it. So yeah, they probably would be a sensible thing. But the Coast Guard have the budget for it.
No, ICE is currently eating up all of Homeland's budget,
Yeah,
and that's not me being petty or political. That is right now of ICE is the big dog on the block for Homeland. Like I said, the Coast Guard is the redheaded stepchild for a lot of budget concerns.
Johnny K. There is a nice little thing to add in questions, but was there a way the Royal Navy could have continued developing 15-inch 50s, the aim retrofitting QEs and other battleships and the battle cruisers? Yeah, if they could get the funding out of the Treasury. It's a 10-year rule which eats that.
Mods, can you? My hands are currently tied up. Can one of the mods drop the Powder Monkey command in to bring it up for John?
Say enough. What does she mean by red-headed stepchild? Oh, basically that's the kid everyone ignores in the family. It comes from the UK, where you are allowed to be, in a nice way, you're not allowed to be rude about anyone anymore, apart from ginger people. Specifically, usually ginger men rather than red-headed ladies, because we all know how dangerous red-headed ladies can be when they're upset. So when they're angry, they are truly scary creatures, and therefore you do not. But usually, gingers and blokes do get a unwarranted level of put on them. But in their defense, they're often very capable of dishing it out, in my experience as well. Considering two of my close friends from school are both ginger guys, and well, let's put it this way: they are both equally capable of dishing out everything they receive.
And if the redhead is short, may God help you, because no one else will.
I don't think even God will help you in that situation. God has better sense. God likes their limbs attached. They're not gonna... They know what they created when they created it. They know exactly how dangerous it is. They have chosen to not go anywhere near it. Exclamation mark Powder Monkey is the right one, isn't it? To put in.
Exclamation mark Powder Monkey should give you the list of commands, but the list of commands are exclamation point Q&A, ampersand, exclamation point query, and exclamation point question.
Okay. because it's helpfully it's working on Twitch but not on YouTube. As far as I can see.
Did YouTube run out of API maybe, or is YouTube just being high latency again?
I think high latency. I typed the command. Possibly. I typoed the command.
It's also the one that gets forgotten the most.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I forgot N from monkey. I did powder mookie. Okay. We've got to change it so it has it can occasionally take my dyslexia. I'm going to use that one. I'm just going to throw it out there now. It never gets me out of anything. I'm just going to check it out now to see if it gets it out of me.
Maybe case sensitive.
DeBrock, do large 300-ish foot diesel electric ARP submarines make any sense today? What role do they have such a boat fill? Mainly that's going to be something where you're seeking something which has a SSGN-like capability. So you're looking for a SSGK capability sort of thing. It's when you're looking for, if you're going for a SSK with that size, usually you're going that size because you're adding in VLS tubes and you're adding in a lot of VLS capability. And it's sensible for nations possibly in the Mediterranean, possibly somewhere, Southeast Asia, possibly areas where they have shallow water, limited funds, and they want to have a capability to strike back at targets within the range of conventional weapon systems. And they're basically looking for a conventional deterrence asset. It's like, if I had been running British procurement for the last 40-odd years, when the Vanguards were being bought, I would have bought 8 of them, and I'd have had 4 rolled as SSGNs. And then if ever there was damage done to one, well, I could just take out the fill-ins and roll it into an SSBN if necessary and keep the SSBN fleet going, and that would have been my task, and I'd have always done that. Why? Because then I could guarantee an SSGN at sea and an SSBN at sea. Technically, I could do it with 7 units, but I'd build 8 just to be sure.
Just very high latency. Okay.
And that would enable me, that sort of would mean I'd always be able to go, right then, so if you do a nuclear attack on the UK, I have the ballistic missile submarine at sea. If you do a conventional attack on the UK, even if you take down a lot of our capabilities, we still have this to punch back. And oh, by the way, we have carriers as well. And that thing can be forward deployed anywhere in the world to assist our allies. We could send the SSGN to sit in, I don't know, somewhere in Southeast Asia or in the Middle East or wherever you need it to be, just going, so you feel like causing trouble to our friends? You'll have instantaneous flashbacks.
Can we name that one Warspite?
Yes, that would be one. But the trouble is, I'm not in charge of the procurement, so no, we haven't had that. We've had the bare minimum procured, as always. And then people wonder why we get into trouble.
But surely no one would ever start a war. That would be irrational.
Oh, don't get me started. It's like someone recently commented on one of the videos this week, oh, £1 billion destroyers don't have this capability. And I went, did I mention the video about the Type 45s and the £1 billion? No, not on that one. Okay, so let's presume you've only ever watched that one video of mine. Because as people who've watched a lot of my videos will know, because I bring this up quite regularly, Type 45s were not £1 billion destroyers. They're really not. They are a lot less. They are only £1 billion once you add in all the development costs, and the development costs were structured to go over a 9 to 12 unit class, not a 6 unit class. And if you built the next 6, that would have been 1.2 to 2 billion extra. So you could have ended up with, at worst, 12 for 8, possibly 12 for 7.2. And at which point you are probably looking at going, well, hang on, that's a £600 million destroyer. Which doesn't have quite the same ring to it. And would have been a lot more helpful.
What about your sense of shock and sensationalism, Dr. Clarke?
I'm a historian. I lost those a long time ago. Fun beliefs. The panel had been chosen by Glorious Belka, Ace Combat, to build a naval superweapon. What do you construct?
Foxo, help.
Go on.
A naval. The panel's been chosen by the Glorious Belka from Ace Combat to build a naval superweapon. What do you construct?
Ruben, what do you need help for?
I don't know what, like, I've heard enough of your Ace Combat related questions to know that I really don't have an idea of the scale nor the technological capabilities of that universe.
Okay. Belk is essentially a nation of mad scientists who believe that if you can't win anything with a super weapon, it's not a super weapon.
I agree.
They're the ones. And they got stuff like.
These sound like my people. Can I go work with them?
So if you just. For example, they're a major part in a giant tower that can evaporate squadrons of aircraft from hundreds of kilometers away, designed to snipe asteroids out of orbit, massive planetary railguns, nuclear superfighters, a flying aircraft carrier that's about 600 meters across. So go wild.
I'm going for a submersible railgun. I'm going to go for a submarine that has a railgun mounted in it that can fire from underwater, so you're never sure where it's firing from. And when it fires, it not only fires the projectile, it also electrifies the water for hundreds of miles around, frying any enemy ships within the area.
That already exists. That's called the Alicorn.
I want 10 of them tomorrow.
Stellar destabilizer?
What?
A stellar destabilizer?
These are still bound to the planet, you know.
I don't know how to one up, you know.
I know what I would do. I would do a small aircraft carrier, LHD sized, that can launch a couple of aircraft. However, those aircraft are linked to a orbital satellite that when they find their targets, instead of like firing off a missile or something, they drop a rod from God on it.
That seems very tame based on your descriptions.
That's quite tame based on Foxo.
I just think it'd be funny to watch a Nimitz get split in half randomly by a tungsten pylon about 100 meters long.
Mm-hmm.
But then you would have to construct additional pylons.
That's what the space elevator's for.
No one gets the reference.
You knew the space elevator was coming. You knew the space elevator was coming.
No one gets the reference of constructing additional pylons? Oh.
So, a good way to describe Belka is...
Look, in a nicest way, Runon, we've been over this before. You have got... we can't help it. None of us were born when you were watching your cultural references, okay?
Ouch. I get it from everybody. Ouch. I can't get no respect. I shouldn't have changed my name to Runon. I should have changed it to Rodney because I can't get no respect.
And again.
Okay,
No.
right, I'm just going to respond to chat. Seneca, Belka
Did
did
it?
nuke itself 7 times.
Yes. I have managed to find it out with a quick Google search.
Yeah, but a good way to describe Belka is, so imagine every conspiracy theory bit of technology, random Cold War prototypes, and tests that never went anywhere, and then make them work for a country that really wants to kill its neighbors.
What are the okay? What are the funniest and most annoying questions you've had this week? Oh, there's been quite a few of interesting ones this week. I swear I'm going to save it because I think this is going to be a very long section next week. Because, as I said before, it's me and Drac discussing the dreadnoughts which have never been built.
Paul, does that include
That's gonna be full. That's gonna be full. Although I will say this week I did have fun on Instagram because, again, I've been, as you'll guess, I've been kind of busy this week dealing with mortgage stuff, etc. And someone messaged me not this Saturday but last Saturday with some questions, and I responded quickly. And then I started streaming because it was Saturday evening, and I'd finished my day. And then, of course, Sunday I have streaming and other things I do. During the day it's a family day, and then Monday through Friday I was working. And they sent other messages during the week, but I hadn't had a chance to check Instagram. I try and check most days, but I don't always do it, and this week I hadn't managed to do it any day. And Instagram is not really a massive social media platform for me. It's not something which I have a lot of traffic on, or I even have a lot of family on. It's just there. And I log back in, and I find a very upset message from this person going, "Oh, as you don't care, I'm going to go to someone else." And I'm sort of going, well, "I'm sorry about that. I wish you luck with going and answering someone else, but again, you've included this as bad customer service on my part. I didn't realise this was customer service. This was just someone had sent me a question, and I was answering it quickly and in the nicest way." Where does the customer services come into it? I thought I was doing someone a favour. And I do find that a bit strange. Yes, I'm a historian, but it's only customer service, in the nicest way, if I am selling something. If you are messaging me out of the blue, and I'm usually very happy to respond. There are people who can tell you that I do respond. I am happy to respond. But the thing is, those are me responding in my free time, when I have free time, answering questions which you've sent me by DM. And I don't mind that. But it's got to be understood, it's in my free time. It's not what I do for a living. I don't spend my day sitting there with all my social media feeds up going, oh, someone sent me a question, must dash off a history answer. No, I am writing a book, writing papers, writing lectures, giving lectures, writing presentations for YouTube, recording the presentations for YouTube. I'm doing consultancy. I'm dealing with all the stuff from the mortgage, all those things. That's what I do in my weekdays. I love you all. I love doing this. But just a note, I don't mind getting the DMs, but it's something I'm doing as a favour. I don't expect anything in return, but it's basically on the favour principles. And therefore that means it gets done when I have free time to do it, not to necessarily your schedule. And as I did say, I apologise that I hadn't responded quickly enough for them as I've been busy, and I wish them luck. But I did find it a little bit strange, because it'd be like DMing Runon and going, "Give me this is a question I have about my electrics." And Runon getting back to you, and then you sending some follow-up questions, and after Runon's gone off to do something else, and Runon, by the time Runon responds a week later, complaining to Runon that it was bad customer services, and it's a case of, well, that's not really the thing, is it? It's Runon being helpful with electrics. or Foxo being helpful with electrics. Seeing as I'm here with 2 electricians, I feel kind of outnumbered. I'm kind of terrified of my wall sockets as well at the same time.
I just don't know how I got snookered into a treaty on the differences between North American and UK sockets and the potential upsides and downsides of both.
Oh, that was a fun thing to watch. I did enjoy that one. What was the Blackburn ever used in combat? If so, what happened? Not as far as I know.
They were retired before that, weren't they?
They were, Dragon.
That's not really combat, though, is it?
And how's
the reason the Blackburn was never used in combat is because its mere presence so terrified the potential opponents of the UK that they dare not made war until it was retired.
Okay, moving swiftly on. Yes, Dragon. Well, as we worked out, you're a dragon, so you go for a fly, not a walk.
This is technically true, but dragons can go for walks as well. It just depends on how much collateral damage they want to cause.
That is true.
Oh,
that is true.
Yes, I do have my submission for the
dragon.
Most unhinged comment that we've received this week.
Okay.
It will be appropriately sanitized for the venue.
Oh, that one.
And I'm going to name and shame because this is just wild. From Derek McManus. This is from last week's Bruships. I found the current day political discussion and trans references made this stream very difficult to find pleasure in myself, if I'm being perfectly honest. Excuse me? What?
This has been cursing Runon's mind for a while, so...
It has been.
Yes!
And I wasn't...
I don't even know if that's task failed successfully. I don't know what to do with that.
I wasn't going to bring it up because I think poor Derek didn't mean to write it that way. And I can understand to an extent, because people do associate this channel with naval history. They don't like too much... Quite a lot of people don't like politics. But as I always say, Bruships is a bit of a come as you are question. So some weeks we will get all history questions. And some weeks we'll get current affairs questions, and that you can't deal with current affairs questions without jumping into politics. So it happens, Derek, is what I'm going to say. I do apologise for it, but it's the way it comes with those questions.
And besides, half from what I've found looking into naval history, half of naval history is just political history with a bow on top.
Half of naval history is political history when they either go wrong or things get very, very, very wrong.
Why do you think I've been bashing my head, Foxo, at that thing we're both part of?
Right. So, Paul Amos. Do you see any of the current weapons companies in Europe developing a 100mm autocannon with smart ammunition rather than 57mm maximum? Well, the 76 has got fairly smart ammunition. The Otto Malera 76. The 57 is BAE's one. 76 Otto. The French keep trying to make the 100mm work again. I'm not sure if they're going to achieve it, because I think, honestly, the thing is, there's so many good 125s on the market, and there's a good 76 on the market, and a good 57, that no one's in the scenario where they really want that sweet spot of the 100mm between them. The thing is, the 4-inch is kind of finding itself in a similar position as the 8-inch. It's not as rapid firing as the 3-inch. It's not as heavy a punch as the 5-inch. And, you just have to look at the 4.5-inch and its issues. And the reason it's being the British are finally putting that out to pasture. But the interesting thing is, there's been a discussion as to why the Type 26 has a 5-inch gun versus the general purpose frigates having a 57mm, and the answer is the Type 26 is fitting into is actually the successor to the Type 22, and the Type 31 is the successor to the Type 23. And that's the thing. The Type 22 was the present ship, and so it had the big gun in final batches after the Falklands War. That's what happens. Bofors is working on 120mm munitions. No one's working on 100 mil is just, yeah. Well, Bofors is working on 125, I think, not 120. The French are currently also trying to rectify the 138.6mm gun as well, but we'll leave that to one side.
Wait, sorry, did you say 136 there?
No, 138.6.
138.
138.6.
As in modern day again?
Yes.
That's interesting, because I know that was a bit of a weird caliber for them to choose even back then, but...
Yeah.
Huh.
Also, there was you've never... The amount of people went, so you're just doing a 140. No, 138.6. You're just doing a 138? No, 138.6. Why are you doing something which is 0.6 of a millimeter? What does that get you?
Because they're French.
It was a whole interesting conversation. I'm hoping it never gets to the official funding level. I think it's just at company level at this current time, but, you know.
You know, I kind of hope it does get official funding and actually get adopted.
Can you imagine the bilge pumps discussion between me, Jamie, and Drac on a 138.6mm gun being adopted by the French?
Yes, and I imagine it is uniquely French.
Why do you think we want them to do it? We want to hear your take on it.
This is the epitome of French. Plus, it's kind of interesting for them going back to a basically
why
World War
have
II
you
caliber.
programmed the bots to write, or will send Runon to the host for her incompetence?
Because I'm the one that programmed it, and I thought it was funny.
Okay. Alright. It's just it comes out as me writing it, and I'm sitting there going, I'm hands-free at the moment. It's entirely bot writing. I would never send Runon to the host for her incompetence. The host actually has some amenities. Stephen Marr, favourite naval infrastructure measure project plan? Can be built, planned, or just a concept. I'm a fan of the plan to flood Plaza, the northern Sahara Desert with a canal. And that was a pretty interesting one. I am personally, I always enjoyed the sheer amount of work the Australians put into planning to create basically the Mediterranean inside Australia. I feel that would have been quite an intriguing operation. How about the rest of you?
Did the Aussies ask the emus about that one?
I think it was their weapon to finally win the war against the emus. They stopped though once they realised that if the emus had no land inland, they would have to come out to see it to them. And then they realised the emus can swim. So the emus would probably survive the flooding.
Like, I know it's purely aside from some almost schizophrenic drawings, fictional, but I've always found Atlant Trooper to be fascinating. Just sort of a bit of infrastructure to dam and turbine the Straits of Gibraltar.
Yeah, I think that's probably going to be the one I was going to mention of just how ludicrous it is. And the fact that no one considered the consequences of what might happen if this was done until later.
Seneca, you are banned from ever going near the French, ever, under any circumstances, because you would give them ideas. And I have enough of the ideas they have.
What did Seneca
me.
do?
Trust me, it can't be anything worse than a certain games company comes up with.
Oh yeah.
A
here's, something for you also-
138.635 millimeter naval gun?
Yeah. This is also something coming up which is going to be fun for you. Do any of you have All Under the Sun for CK3?
Boxo?
Yes.
Well,
No.
as part of the things for for the people can get that everyone can get for funding the Japan trip and supporting the Japan stuff, and I said it's on the Shipshape site now. There's going to be an official launch on Wednesday, which is why there's no links on it, anything below this video. But as part of it there is going to be an All Under the Sun game where first I get taught how to play All Under the Sun by Garius, and probably play with a couple of people, and then we're going to do a mass multiplayer and get as many people as we can from the people who pay for the at the right levels for the trip, and we're going to do a massive multiplayer game. Now the interesting thing is, but one of our Shipshape colleagues has said they don't need to be taught anything, they can play it without having ever done it before, and they will be fine. So
Suspicious.
we will
Let
see.
me guess. I think I know who that is.
Have they played CK2 before?
No. They haven't played any of the Crusader Kings games ever, as far as I can tell.
I think I know who this is, and I think they're going to get turned into paste.
Okay, I
and-
know exactly what I'm going to do in that game then.
You're not referring to Fleet, are you?
No.
I hope you're not referring.
No, Fleet has played
Good.
CK3, I think, or some variant before.
I'm going to do Viking Japan.
Because that... Oh, not again.
Oh, I think me and Gareth, one of us was the odds were one of us was going to end up as Japan, but yeah, we might let you, Foxo, play Japan.
No,
No. Okay,
he's
so,
not
so
playing
you're right.
Japan.
You can play as unlanded characters, right? Like leaders of mercenary companies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the Vikings get special bonuses for this. And so they would be start in Scandinavia, travel to Japan, and conquer Japan.
And you now get Viking culture. Japan.
Japan.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next question. This is going to be a fun thing. But I just thought I'd give you a heads up of what's coming. And there's going to be lots of things done in November and stuff for it this year. There's also a painting. We're going to do a painting this year as well. And I've also come up with a cunning plan. Instead of the Shipshape crew deciding on the image for the challenge coin, we're going to put forward all our designs to the people who are funding the trip, and they get to vote and pick which one they want.
And I presume one with most votes wins.
Yes.
Right. Just clarifying on that one, because that is an important clarification to make.
Yes. It is that simple. So, to quote, it took us 9.5 months to be happy with the design for the Scandinavia one. 9.5 months. I am short-circuiting a lot of potential areas of debate. I love this group. They are my closest friends. They are the funniest, nicest people to go away with for a month a year. We have so much fun doing the history. We have so much such a good time with it all. We love the museums. We love meeting all the people we know. We love meeting all the people around the world that we meet in this is wonderful. However, the fact that if I was to say that we are all mildly controlling when it comes to certain and controlling perfectionists when it comes to our work, would that surprise you?
Nope.
Now, Slayerdarth, what are your top book recommendations for someone wanting a primer on modern naval warfare, such as the different classes, types, and naval seacraft mean? For modern naval warfare, you'll probably want a good Jane's if you're talking about modern naval warfare. That's a good starting place. Most of the stuff on modern naval warfare is discussed on websites. Realistically, the good books are all incredibly expensive. And when I say incredibly expensive, I'm talking the cheapest I have on modern naval warfare that actually does something like that is 150 quid to buy. This is to get your kids involved in history early. They never have money for drugs or alcohol. It's a great thing.
Or you could get them interested in Warhammer 40k.
Either way, but one could involve them. But nicest way, one could involve them sniffing glue, and cars can also lead to an interesting. It can also lead to racing, which can lead to street racing and all sorts of issues that way. So,
what if we only get them in a quick assembly kit?
Yeah, they'll start there. They never finish there. I'm trying to look for my copies of Jane's. They're around here somewhere. I have the stack for the last 15 odd years. But yeah, you just... Jane's, pretty much. Their annuals. And... yeah, those are pretty much the ones which are the current ones. Also, Warships International Fleet Review is a great magazine. And that does it a lot. In fact, honestly, a subscription to Warships International Fleet Review is probably the best option. Because Wi-Fi is cheaper than Jane's, and it's got some great stuff. Got some great pictures in it, and Ian Ballantyne does a wonderful job putting it together. So I'd go for Wi-Fi Warships International Fleet Review. I used to write articles for them. I still do occasionally write articles for them. I think. I know I get checks occasionally from them, so I must have submitted something. It's basically enough to. It always sounds. Here's the other thing I'd like to point out to people before you start thinking. Articles are a great thing and a fun thing to write. But I will point out, the check comes in, and it's basically buys a Chinese takeaway for the family, for 3 people. That's just the way it is these days. No one's paying any money in these sort of areas. It's fun. Hello. Yes, you're cute. Sorry, if you're wondering what I'm doing, I have a poodle's paw and it's captured and it's mine now. It's all mine. Which naval ship of World War II do you feel did not live up to its hype?
Yamato.
Oh. Yamato actually did something. Yeah, there's so many. Tirpitz.
Yeah, but Yamato was supposed to take... Yamato was supposed to anchor the line and take on many times her number. She never did.
Just ran the way she expected.
Yeah.
Also, she was at least a very good command ship.
I think that's partially because of the way they market. That's not her. That's also the way they marketed her. In some ways, Yamato doesn't have enough hype about her. She has post-World War II hype. During her life, she doesn't have hype. So she doesn't have hype to live up to. If that makes sense. Zako, that won't get you banned. They'll just get you... How do I put this? I'm not sad. I'm not angry. I'm just disappointed, Zako. I'm just disappointed. I thought better of you.
What statement is this? Oh.
But leaving that to
Oh,
one
just to
side,
get banned tribal classes. Okay.
yeah, they have. You've got to look at something which is hyped in its time, and in its time, you're looking realistically the German battleships. They are the most hyped ships of World War Two. The only other example you've got is possibly Hood. So basically, it's Hood versus Tirpitz realistically, because Bismarck at least sunk Hood. It was a battle cruiser, but she sunk her.
Yeah, but Bismarck sunk a clapped out Hood.
Yeah, but she was
You know,
still
that's like saying my Fiesta beat a clapped out.
Yeah, but the trouble is, she still did more than
Camaro
Tirpitz.
Super Sport from the '60s.
She still did more than Tirpitz.
Look, I don't agree, because actually, reasonable parts of the German surface fleet actually did well for themselves. And oftentimes, a lot of the German fleet actually isn't overhyped. For instance, when was the last time you heard people saying how great of a ship the Königsberg and Nürnberg classes were?
That's because they're terrible.
And how often... Like, you hear about the Deutschlands, I guess, to a degree, but again, say, Admiral Graf Spee basically is the only one holding that up.
Yes.
I heard a lot about the Hippers and how they were so much bigger and more powerful then.
That's more... I wouldn't say that's them hyping them up. I would say more that's people going, how are you so bad?
It's not people going why they're bad, it's that they're so much bigger, therefore they must be so much better. Why are they so big with only 8 guns? Well, they're obviously the best 8-inch guns ever made.
Pixel, I don't think Tirpitz got that much hype. Bismarck did. Yes,
More than hype.
the Beast. I know it's kind of a thing that has been inflated a bit now, but she was regarded as a major threat, and just the sheer presence of Tirpitz did mean that more forces had to be available. But also, Sisters of Bismarck, etc. How dangerous she is because she's improved over Bismarck. If Bismarck could, yeah, the Lone Queen of the North. I'm trying to think if any of the Italian ships really had that much hype behind them. Because
no, they didn't. The Italians don't get the hype. They really don't. They should do. I was doing the video which is coming out in a couple of weeks' time on the battle of Taranto. If you had 4 carriers involved, and it's just the Royal Navy wishes they had 4 carriers. They wanted it to be a multi-carrier operation. This is what people don't realise. The Battle of Taranto was supposed to be a multi-carrier operation. It was supposed to be Eagle and Illustrious, with bringing in 42 Swordfish. And there are even documents where the Royal Navy are going, is this going to be enough? Should we try and get another carrier there? You know, their ideal strike would have been about 4 carriers, would have been about 100 or so torpedo bombers. And if you think 100 or so, TSRs... And you start going, well, hang on, if the Royal Navy's dropping 60 torpedoes into that harbour, if you consider 5 out of 11 hit, so if from 60 you go, let's say there are 25 which hit, which is that's not me being overly generous, I think, going for 25. 25 torpedo hits, that's a lot of the Italian fleet in that harbour no longer working. And bless you, Foxo. Common Karen, do you think it was the introduction of the cast iron brackets to allow for continued construction of large wooden ships made the shift to all metal ships inevitable for the Royal Navy? It was inevitable for everyone, because at a certain point you're looking at, once you start having the development of explosive shells, you're looking for something that's going to be able to withstand explosive shells, and that's different than wooden. Because traditionally wooden ships, the reason they've been selected was they were naturally good in the fire they received. They'd still stay afloat because the vessel was capable of staying afloat. Wood naturally is buoyant. Once you have explosive shells coming in, the amount of damage they do to a wooden hull, the fact that they stop it being so naturally buoyant because they blow it apart and it becomes individual bits, and they cause damage from the inside out, i.e. they are replicating the effects of magazine detonation. You start going, well, hang on, we need to stop these shells getting in the first place. We need to find a way to strengthen the hull to a point at which it can deal with this, or it can deal with it in sections, sort of thing. So that kind of makes the shift in materials inevitable. Night Security everyone. Were the German FUMB 6 Palo ECM suite and FUMB E7 suite used for? What were the ECM suites and the ECM suites used for?
Think about that one real hard, Knight, and see if you can come up with the answer. But I feel like it has something to do with electronic countermeasures and the electronic warfare aspect of combat. Don't know, just a suggestion.
I'm presuming
Unless
what they're asking is what was it used in? I think it was used in various submarines, wasn't it? Yeah.
if it was in, I retract my statement and offer apologies. But
Well, no, as it reads, you are right in the response you made. But, I think it's their radar detectors, primarily, ECMs. FUM 6. Oh, I have different names for that on my list. I have Cuba and Puma.
for more details, you're probably looking at spoofing and distracting the radar arrays to generate garbage data in the assaulting aircraft.
Yeah, pretty much that's it. They're trying to spoof, trying to discourage radar. Bowman Boy, what if the first shell Lee fires at Guadalcanal is in flight replaced by a nuclear 16-inch shell from the Cold War with the same trajectory?
I think you asked this on Ramblings, and essentially, there's a lot of dead sailors and fish.
Yeah. It's going to cause a huge amount of damage. A huge amount of damage. You probably end up with a lot of Japanese ships gone, but also you have to remember, one of the things that movies really make interesting for us in naval history is that they always portray these task forces quite close together, and they have to do that because of the shot, getting them in the shot. And whereas the reality is the ships are often very, very far apart. Very, very far apart. We're talking 3 to 4 kilometers between the ships. Now, that means you can have that means nicest way, whilst the bomb going off is going to be devastating, a nuclear shell going off is going to be devastating. Most ships are going to be more impacted by the heat wave and the resulting aquatic wave that's going to result from it than the actual explosion itself. So the pressure heat wave, and the water and the aquatic wave that comes from it are going to be more of the impact.
And also getting their decks washed with a degree of radioactive seawater.
And not having the same systems to wash it off. But the thing is, that's going to be more interesting how they're going to deal with it, and also you have to remember that no one's ever dealt with a nuclear explosion before at the time. Nuclear explosion before at this time. If you're using it at this point, that's far too early. Also, that the Japanese fleet that is in the area ceases to be much of a problem, because let's be honest, none of their destroyers are going to survive that. They're far too lightly built. Colin Cameron, and I'm going to leave this to you three because I did the year of technology, so I think I've already answered this in several areas. What do you think are the most widely used tech, important tech, and overlooked tech advancements that started with the Royal Navy?
Radar. It's used by everybody at this point. It's extremely important for literally everything in naval combat, and it's often overlooked at how much the Royal Navy contributed to its development and deployment.
I'm gonna go a bit broader than that and go radio triangulation, especially 3-point.
Radio direction finding.
Yes. Because that is network-wise is pretty much the foundation of a lot of modern networks.
Hmm. Yeah, probably tend to agree.
That's how satellites work.
Just trying to remember if that one was a sort of more uniquely British thing, but definitely one of the most important things they had. So, to a degree, it's definitely not a unique Royal Navy thing, or at least the concept isn't unique, but I would also want to put forward the Admiralty Fire Control Table. As that was it was a remarkably good fire control system for its time. And considering it's starting to come about in like 1920, I would argue it's probably the best fire control system in the world at the time it entered service properly. From what I'm aware of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, you do get other fire control systems from other nations later, but it's definitely something that overall helps them.
Yeah.
I'm kind of curious to think, even though you did say you've already kind of answered, but I guess just for a take, what would you actually say is the one that jumps to mind to most, or I guess if not the most important, your favourite one?
Oh, there's the fact the entire system of Calabar is entirely British invention. The mirror sight error for all the systems which make Calabar work with British invention. The beacon system starts off realistically with the Brits. The Americans get there by convergent development quite quickly, but the Brits get there just a bit first, mainly because they're looking at night flying.
That's I was
so
now
the vast majority of modern carrier aviation is literally dependent on what the British developed prior to World War II and during World War II. And it's in the technological sphere. Mainly because the British had to. The British were looking at night flying, and that's the thing. The moment you're doing night flying, suddenly all your problems are complicated tenfold, so you have to invest the money in these things. The Americans weren't looking at it as the same way, so they didn't have to invest that money, so they could put their money elsewhere. And this is the thing, people forget that American Navy in the interwar years does not have a limitless budget. And in fact, in many ways, in the 1920s and 30s, the Royal Navy has a far more flexible budget and more control of its budget than the Americans do. A lot more realistically, so they're able to spend what they're able to spend on these things. but also it's part of their core operating requirements, so they're going to put the money aside for it. I'd also go with things like, it's amazing how much of the engine technology and the systems we use these days are based on British standard practices from World War II onwards. A lot of the stuff has been on it. But yeah.
And Walter brought us, EW in many ways is still kind of an art.
Mm-hmm.
So the reason a lot of the stuff from World War II you may find an interesting amount of items from World War II still under interesting levels of classification, despite the time gap, is because that is the basis for pattern and practice that's done today.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a lot of the stuff that you'll see out of the Falklands is classified, or Vietnam is classified.
Now that you reminded me of it, the beacon system is also another one I should have mentioned earlier, but...
Jonathan Moon, remember your question syntax so the bot grabs it.
Bone Boy, when did surface launch torpedo cease to be a viable anti-surface weapon? Pretty much the moment you start having ranges increase to the point that they get ludicrous in comparison to it. Realistically, World War II is the last gasp for the torpedo weapons. They're still around in the 1950s because of the ships you're dealing with, but it's very quickly going because missiles are coming in. But pretty much by that point, gun had replaced that, because to get within torpedo range where you're going to likely to achieve a torpedo kill range, you were having to get close. You were having to get really close, because realistically, torpedoes coming through the water, if you're listening for submarines, you can hear a torpedo coming off them. Yeah. It happens, though. Why did I just get a notice about a video of Clarke's going live? It shouldn't be. There should be no video going live.
Because YouTube's notifications are blocked.
Yeah. Admittedly, I am now up to... I've got videos recorded up to Saturday the 21st of February, 2026. Because I record do the recorded versions of the Thursday videos at the same time I do them. They're now getting plotted incredibly far ahead, so I've got Saturdays going on for ages, with videos included. Now, Richard Cross, could Renown have been repaired and rebuilt to be part of Vanguard if we had the time money? No, she's too old. In a nice way, she's too old. By that point, you're talking about something which is approaching... which is roughly 30 years old, has been through 2 world wars, has been worked hard in both world wars, and didn't exactly have a peaceful interwar period. No. There are cheaper, easier ways to go bankrupt yourself. Basically, it would have been another Victorious. Peter Dawson, walks around the area. Do they include dog? Peter, question. Do you think I get to say no to this thing that often? I love you dearly, Peter, but no. No. There are questions to ask, and there are, ones which are the answers are obvious. What would commerce rating look like in a hypothetical World War III?
SSGNs SSGNs everywhere.
No, why would you send a whole SSGN out to do it? There aren't that many ships. Maybe SSNs, maybe you're sending nuclear submarines off hunting. But realistically, if you're going to do commerce raiding and you're trying to do it below the radar, you're going to have a merchant ship which has been adapted into some form of Q ship using weapon systems which are probably normally land-based systems, which have been adapted to sea use. Maybe you've got something like a 76 Automalera 76mm inside a container and things like that, because that would fit inside a container, I think, and have the container sort of plop down, and suddenly you've got an Auto 76 in there. Or maybe a couple of them. There's options, but it's, you know, that's what you're doing. So you can give one ship in history, Automalera 76. The ship has to be able to take it, electricity and displacement-wise. Which ship does it change the most? HMS Repulse.
How much power does an Automalera 76 draw again?
Repulse could sustain it.
All of a sudden, those Japanese planes are not having a good day.
Yeah. Clarke said, our merchant ships are always a lovely way to make a war worse. They always do make wars worse, and they always happen. Our merchant cruisers were a thing all the way through World War II. And yeah, they're always a likelihood. But yeah, if basically the earliest you can go back to realistically is World War II, and if you want to have the biggest change of history, you want an Automalera 76 or something. The other option is I don't know. There are some interesting aircraft. You can always change the whole of the illustrious class aircraft carriers to have Auto, but the 4.5 they have on is fairly decent, so they don't really. It does change things in some ways, but doesn't in others. I'd say Repulse is the big change. If it's one ship, it's one ship. So it's Repulse.
Because all of a sudden you've changed how a lot of stuff just happened. Because Repulse and it's got to go all of a sudden make it, and that's a lot of differences there.
Yeah, Paul, that's the thing. If you change for Achilles and Antelope in the Falklands, that's great. They have that capability. That's lovely. They survive. It's an extra frigate surviving. If you make it so Repulse and Prince of Wales survive, then you have Force Z surviving in the South the South China Sea, and that's going to change a lot of history. Bowman Boy, could UUVs cause the revival of short-range ASW rockets or mortars in Atlantic navies, or can ASW shells handle them? At the moment, I'd say probably ASW shells will be able to handle them, if the Rangers we're talking about. But yeah, there are some options. There are some options out there. The other thing is, the thing about UUVs is we have seen them being effective, but again, I was having this discussion with someone who's been watching the Ukraine war more than me. To point out that the Russians' best method against Ukrainian UUVs has so far been a heavy machine gun mounted in a helicopter, because they're traveling that close to the surface, and if the helicopter's over them, it can engage them. The fact that they aren't able to keep this up as a standard operating procedure, operating around their bases, shows you some of the issues they're having with maintenance support of even their helicopter fleet. But that's been their best weapon system so far at dealing with the threat. So, realistically, again, for Allied navies, maybe for Atlantic navies, for things like the Royal Navy or something, it might well be a rotary UAV with a heavy machine gun, and have a couple of those flying around, going, "Oh, hello." But you probably, by the time you have them being used in the Atlantic, they're operating slightly deeper, they're slightly differently, and they're slightly bigger. And again, it's probably going to be ASW shells and the normal depth charges. What do you think is the best 5-inch gun in current production? 5-inch gun in current production. Honestly, I am the things you have to pick between are the 5-inch 54 or the Mark 45 of the US that's now owned by BAE and built by BAE and has been around since it was first designed in 1968 and is produced in 97, and the Otto Breda, which is the one which is used by the Italian Navy. And it's look, I'm gonna sound biased here, but I'm picking between BAE and Otto Breda. That's who I'm picking between. And if I was going to buy one for the Royal Navy, if I was in charge of it, I would probably be going for the Otto Breda, because of how capable that is, and because of the Volcano ammunition and various other things. It's what the RCN have picked for their Type 26s, and it's very sensible they have. The Royal Navy have picked the American gun for their Type 26. The Australians have picked it for their Type 26. So it's interesting to see those two classes are going to have different options of it. But I think, to be honest, the British are a bit squeamish of picking Italian guns. They prefer to go with BAE built weapons. And I think the only way we're going to get the Royal Navy getting something like the Otto 76 or the Otto 177mm in service is going to be if we have a nice link up between BAE and them. And they do have some options around for that. I do think, if you consider the 5-inch 54 was designed in 1968 officially, that was when it was locked in, and then produced from 1971 onwards, it's 37 years older than the Otto Breda 127mm. They keep working on new guns, but the new guns keep getting turned down. And the Mod 4 is a great system. Please, don't get me wrong. The Mod 4... But the fact is, the Americans have ended the extended range guided ammunition, ERGM, and all sorts of things, which we're going to add on to it, and we're going to make it really, really capable. And Otto Breda have kept the Volcano ammunition, so... The Otto Breda one has... How do I put this politely? The Otto Breda has a 120 kilometer, that's a 75-mile firing range with its Volcano ammunition. And it can fire 32 rounds per minute. So that's a fairly capable weapon system. I would, yeah. So if I'm going to pick a 5-inch gun at the moment, I'm going to go with the Italians. Mainly because, again, the Americans have lost this one because they keep mucking around. They keep having some great ideas. They keep mucking around. The railgun project has, by the way, been bought by the Japanese. And they are doing great things with it because what they set as the criteria versus what the Americans are setting as criteria are very different. And the Japanese have got some very interesting stuff working out, and they are very likely soon going to be providing operating a railgun on their future warships very soon. Because the trouble is, the Americans set criteria which are up here. Well, that's fine. If you can achieve that criteria, that's going to be an amazing system. But it's very, very difficult to achieve on a first-generation unit. The Japanese are setting criteria which are about here. Not far off, but just far enough below to make it viable. Honestly, I think if the Americans are going for a new deck gun day, they'll probably go for something bigger than a 5-inch. Probably end up going a 6-inch gun. A bit of alternate history question. After World War I, the British saw the USSR as a threat and were keen to sell guns to a discounted rate to Finnish and European Estonians to block St. Petersburg. Would Vickers salesmen sell the 14-inch guns there? Yes.
Yes, the Vickers salesman sale criteria is
do you have money?
Do you have a checkbook?
Yeah. Not
oh, you have a checkbook? What would you like to buy?
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I'm sure I've seen some designs for Vickers Armstrong exports for small battleships, coastal defense ships, and even some larger great ships to be sold to the Baltics at this point. Like, hey, want 14-inch guns, 15-inch. So, yeah. Seems very much like something that we're wanting to do. At least willing.
Well, the Japanese have actually installed the railgun on the Asuka. It's being conducted by the Systems Research Center, which is the division of the Acquisition Technology and Logistics Agency, the ATLA. So it's under government procurement, AC-75. If you want more information, let me just put this in the chat for you. That should take it. And yeah, the Japanese are. It looks very interesting what they're going for. It looks very, very interesting what they're going for.
Well, Cactus Stud, that's because your local farmer doesn't want to have his GPS unit stolen. And as we all know from Clarkson's farm, that is the #1 stolen item off of farms.
Yes, it is. In the nicest way, the local farmers around here, yeah, they are. Ooh. Bomber Boy, what killed the torpedo bomber as an anti-surface platform? Basically the range of a torpedo versus the range of a missile. Do you want to get that close to a ship with that many radar-guided guns? No. And anti-ship missiles give you a more viable way to do it. If you didn't have the anti-ship missiles, you'd figure out a way to do it with the torpedo bomber. But if you have anti-ship missiles, why would you do it with a torpedo bomber? Malaga, how well suited would you say the current Nigerian Navy is for patrolling its own waters? Honestly, the Nigerian Navy is full of OPVs, if I remember correctly. Let me just check. Oh, is he off to bed?
Yes. Because I've had to put someone else there because I've got to get something else done.
Okay. Alright, sis. Poodle has gone to bed.
But is the poodle going to bed against their will?
No, because as far as the Ralsonian calendar is concerned, this is about bedtime. The Ralsonian calendar is fixed. So they have some... oh, good lord. They have a single Miko 360 frigate, which is currently under refit. And they have a couple of former Hamilton class Coast Guard cutters as their frigates. They're their sort of larger vessels. Then they have a whole load of interesting patrol corvettes from China and Turkey. Some fast attack craft. They're building some more vessels from Turkey. They're trying to build their own vessels in Nigeria. They are pretty much a large collection of inshore patrol craft, various amphibious craft, some interesting support ships. And some interesting aircraft, but I'd say the Nigerian Navy is, in terms of suited for a patrol zone area, that is what it's orientated around, but it's got a lot of water to patrol. And if they were going for regional power, they've got to build up their frigate strength. They've got to get some modern frigates in there. Probably something of, I would say, considering the ocean they're in, I would go for something of Type 31 rather than frigate the intervention. But if they were the other side of the African side of Africa, I'd probably go frigate the intervention, just because of the sea states and the way the seas run. I know, this is the fun thing when people go, why are you picking these ships? Literally hull shaping. Literally, it's hull shaping. I'm picking this because its hull shape is more suited to the Atlantic troughing of the waves versus the Indian Ocean's flicking of the waves. And those are actually the phrases I've heard from actual mariners who ply their ships through those waters. Atlantic waves like to trough. So they like to go boom. Indian Ocean waves like to flick. Which might sound like it's nicer, but no, it's just nasty in a different way. Because of the way it balances, it causes your ship to balance and have to reel itself. Sorry, every time I flick this to being full, it goes into massive. Bone Boy, how does the Malphon system compare to Ikra? Are they comparable? And if not, why not? Okay. Anyone want to go to this one first?
Nope.
You don't.
Did we answer Wayne's question about drones?
No, but that's because I'm doing the Malphon first. There's a reason I'm doing the Malphon. So, basically,
No
for
idea
those who
what
don't know, the Malphon system is the French system. It is comparable to the Ikara, and they are, broadly speaking, honestly the same. As they're near enough makes no real difference. I would like to see both to have continued, because I honestly think a rocket-assisted, missile sort of launch torpedoes are a good thing to have. I think they're a very useful anti-submarine capability to have, especially if you have helicopters which are self-sustaining out front. But the thing is, I don't want a helicopter to lose its contact to have to come back and rearm. But this is what we've got a lot of UAVs being developed for, a lot of things being developed for, to assist those helicopters in that role. When it used to be, we just go, oh, you need a torpedo on your location. All right, keep the fix. Fire 1, fire 2, fire 3. And submarine is going, there's a torpedo there, and a torpedo there. I've got torpedoes at every 120 degrees of me, coming in at me. This is not nice. Coming in at me. This is not nice. So, Wayne, what was the best drone automatically guided weapon of World War II from an effectiveness perspective? Because they were actually used, it's got to be one of the German ones, and I'm tempted to say the 293. Yeah, I'd say it's... But that is a radio-guided glide bomb, technically not a drone or anything. But I'd say the 293 is probably the best from an effectiveness perspective because, well, they had the most built and the most used. So that's what I go with. That's what I go with. Sonic Nero, has there been an if battle where one side was on top of a waterfall firing down? Not to my knowledge, but history is a weird and wonderful thing, and there's been enough Chinese battles on rivers that it could be interesting. Walter Brodus, it's a nice joke to make, I do realise that, but I've actually taught quite a few people from the Nigerian Navy when they've come over here for various things. They are actually a very professional Navy and a very capable force. They work very hard to be. I know the Nigerian prince scam is a thing that's going that often goes through around the world, but honestly, Nigeria is very rarely involved in the Nigerian prince scam. Okay, what do you think of Sweden considering getting frigates instead of corvettes? Probably sensible to have something slightly bigger, slightly more staying power when you've got the problems going on. Basically, what they're looking at is scaling up the options. Sweden is basically looking at going, well, we'd normally get a corvette-sized ship, and that would be sensible. But that... Runon, you okay?
Me? Yeah, I'm good. That's me whacking a cap out to get rid of the debris
Okay.
from my liquid mask. Not me hacking a lung up.
Alright, that's just kidding. But basically, if you consider it, Sweden's basically gone from, okay, we need a roughly 2,500 ton ship to we probably need a 4 to 5,000 ton ship. And that's the differential. That's what they're basically looking at, going, okay, we need something bigger, we need something with slightly better ASW capabilities and slightly more survivability than we've gone on it previously. So that's what they're going for. That's quite simple. When you're jumping from corvette to frigate, you're going up capability. Now, which modern navy would you say cares the most about crew comfort on their ships? Which modern navy cares the most for crew comfort? Well, on the French one, we have wine on tap. On various places. And you have very comfy beds. The Italian one has probably the best food of the lot. The Italian has probably the best food. Mainly because I enjoyed it. I've enjoyed it more when I spent time on board them. I'm going to go the Italian ships. I'm going to go the Italian ships. In nicest way, this is going by my experience. Okay, the Chinese ships they're just a bit small for me. Okay, in nicest way, their accommodations are a bit small, so they're room them out. The Japanese, I haven't spent enough time on Japanese ships to really say. They're usually okay, but they're too close to the American comfort levels for my liking, and frankly, for them to be in the top level. And the American ones are probably, I would say, of any of the major navies, the American Navy are the ones who are most satisfied with very small upgrades. And the things you sometimes hear people say. I was a video count the other day and it was going about the start of the accommodations of admirals. And I was going, okay, you don't want to see this. A, it spent most of its time giving you video footage of what USS Midway was like, not the Jerevar Falls, which was supposed to be bad. And B, it completely misunderstood the reason why admirals have the level of accommodation as they do. Because usually they have staterooms, etc., because they're expected to do entertaining on behalf of the state. That's it. When an admiral entertains someone in their staterooms, that's because they are entertaining on behalf of the state. That's why they're called staterooms. And yes, they'll often have quite comfortable personal accommodations, but also if you think about it, the admiral is usually the oldest person on the ship that you are trying to keep going under probably quite a lot of stress, because they are responsible for everyone. Everyone's lives depend on them, and them not mucking up. So, whereas you want to care about everyone on your ship, your admiral you're probably going to worry about a little bit more. Because they've got many ships' lives depending on them. So that changes things in how you treat them and how you take care of them. Remember, again, I've said before, captain's important enough that you usually enables you usually detail someone who's basically responsible to make sure they eat and they sleep, and remind them to do it. Because if they start forgetting these things, because getting wrapped up in all the problems the ship's going through, and they're not taking care of themselves, then you're eventually going to have a captain who breaks, who's no use to you, and you need a captain doing their job to keeping that ship going. So you have someone whose job it is basically to watch and maintain the captain. Because again, you start treating the people on the ship like they're components, okay? So if you think about it, every cell of component needs a certain amount of maintenance depending on its criticality and importance to the operation of a vehicle or any system. So some components are important, all components are level important, so all require some maintenance. So you have a check-in system, you will have medical personnel aboard the ship, you'll have officers and NCOs who will be checking in with their people and checking down them. But at a certain point, you've got the person at the top of the chain who's checking on everyone below them, who's also one of the most important systems of the ship, and you need to make sure you have someone whose job it is to check up, to check on them. And that's got to be a kind of special relationship, because if that boss person thinks that they need someone, they can almost to extent vent to. So it needs to be someone of complete discretion who reports totally to them. This is why the captain steward is such a powerful position on a ship, because they are the direct conduit to the captain. And I have seen scenarios where if you mucking around with a captain's steward, i.e. trying to intimidate them into not passing information on to the captain, is one of the quickest ways to get yourself into trouble without even the steward saying anything. Because the relationship will go both ways. They'll spend enough time with each other that the captain will pick up when there's something wrong with the steward, and then the captain will start looking. And the captain's probably first port of call will be with the head steward or the chief of the ship. And if they're a smart captain, they'll gauge their responses to see if they're the ones causing the trouble. If they're not, and the steward's still not telling the captain what's going on, then they'll be charged with investigating it. And that means you'll then have the chief of the ship hunting you down and the captain hunting you down. Or rather, the chief of the ship hunting you down with the captain's full authority. That's a very scary scenario for anyone on a ship who's causing trouble. So yeah, Captain Steward is usually one of those people who's sort of an honorary member of the command team, is how we would phrase it.
I'm reminded of the meme that pops up every now and again. I think it's a photo, I think, of a cheetah with its paw on the shoulder of a gazelle.
Mm-hmm.
And the text just reads, "Do you have any idea how frigated you are?"
Yeah.
Or how frigated you are right now. And that's the image that pops into my head based on that description.
Actually, this is worse. This is more a Australian lying on the floor with an emu standing over them.
Why not a cassowary?
Because that stops when you're dead.
Okay.
But my boy, what is the smallest viable caliber for modern surface-launched ASW rockets and why? Depends on what fuel you're planning on using for your rocket and sort of how you're going to do it, but most ASW rockets we're talking about these days, and most of the ones built are Russian. Most of them are... well, the Americans have tried various things on 130mm, etc., some of these things, but most ones we're talking about are 300mm plus. Most of the modern ones are 300mm plus. The Turks have produced the Rockstand system, which is always pretty interesting. Always interesting. God, that's hot. Yeah, that's really hot.
Do I want to know the context of that statement?
The hot? Oh, yeah, that's the camera.
Okay.
Let's put it this way: the camera is currently hot enough that compared to the computer, it's cool. The computer is cooler, but the computer does have enough fans in it to possibly take off. And the thing that usually decides ASW rocket size is the size of basically the depth charge you want to put on. Polemus. Historically, US manning levels have been far higher than the Royal Navy and other navies. Is this practice a detriment to US Navy by not having systems less personnel dependent, or is it the cost of personnel compared to organization of the system? Here's the really weird thing, right? So, the US Navy paid to get a European-style boat launching and recovery system installed on their Zermatt-class destroyers. And it works. Okay? And in European practice, other NATO navies, you'd have one person crewing it, and then you'd have an on-call team of engineers who you can call who can assist if things go wrong. In US Navy practice, you still have a full boat crew standing there while the boats are launched and recovered to launch and recover it manually if necessary. Now, you can argue that by having them there, they are there if you instantly have problems, yes, and that is an advantage. But you could also argue you now have about 8 people standing around doing nothing while that have been called away from other jobs to stand and wait there while the system does it all. So it's a case of it's prioritization. To my mind, what I can see maybe going, right then we'd like a couple of extra people there so that there's enough people to stabilize things if things go wrong immediately there. There's got to be a happy medium, though, between going, we're going to have everyone there as if we're doing it manually, versus, and we're going to have no one, we're only going to have one person there. There's got to be a happy medium between the two. And I think that's the trouble. I think, to an extent, NATO navies under crew, or other NATO navies under crew and under resource, but I think, to an extent, the US Navy hasn't got out of some of its old crewing habits despite new systems and upgrades.
There's also the lobbying of congressional members to blunt foreign providers' competitive advantages or competitiveness. Note, I said lobbying, not bribing. Two very different things. One is a crime, one is a protected right.
Now, Rune von Bismarck. Leslie, I have seen your question come in, but it hasn't got Q&A next to it, so I don't know if we'll get to it if we can. Rune von Bismarck. Did the Royal Navy train its sailors to close quarters combat in World War II? To an extent, yes.
Oh, no.
to an extent, they do get
I
some.
did
They
not
do get
end the
training.
shared chat session. You lie.
I know it's a statement, not a question, but yeah, I know, Leslie, but that means I can't comment back on it if it's not a question. Timu, thoughts on a new improved Mogami class the Australians ordered? Makes sense. It's either that or the Type 31s, and honestly, the Australians need enough of Type 26 level vessels, and they need enough of the Type 31 level vessels. And going with Mogami for one, and you can, in a nice way, it makes sense for. Okay.
Runon?
I've,
You okay?
I've muted Runon for a second. Hopefully that's a mute which Runon themselves can undo until they get back and they stop doing those weird sounds.
Yeah, your mic seems a lot more sensitive tonight.
Yes, very much sensitive. Was that a mute by me or was that a server mute? Oh, I'll do a...
Neither. Or no, now that's a server mute.
so they can undo... Runon can undo that herself, can't she?
Yes, she should be able to.
That's good. Unless as God of server, my mutes can't be undone. In which case, well, you know, I'm too powerful. The Brock. Yeah, but back to the the Mogami class, they're going to fit into that scenario. I think for Australia, the big thing they're going to be finding issues with is that they've bought a lot of rule of 2 stuff, and realistically, they need rule of 3, if not rule of 4. And the big thing I was trying to drive at with the building for peace is rule of 3 is your wartime operating standard. If you want to build in the slack into your system, which allows you to do a lot of the engagement, which is naval diplomacy, which is the presence mission, which is conventional deterrence, you need to be working to a rule of 4 or 5 scenario as well. Anyway. The Brook. What economic and military implications would a rail pipeline link across the narrow part of Mexico, Gulf of Mexico to the Pacific, built in the early 1940s have? Not a lot. There's already railway lines going across.
I hope you're going to have a lot of fun. Please keep following and please invite others to subscribe so there's more people here.
Thank you, Westwood Sailor. Thanks for following the channel. I've got to stop that. That spooked me out a second. I was going, where am I talking to myself from?
Kind of struggling to see what this is useful for.
Yeah, it's not going to change anything. It's really not going to change anything.
Yeah, because your C-rail interface really.
Okay. I'm going to... sorry, I think it lost your part there.
What do you mean it lost my part?
It did. Give me a second. I'm going back to my Twitch one. There you go, back. Sorry, for some reason, because I had it on Twitch, it was sort of working here as well. So we're going, nope. Sorry.
Oh yeah, Twitch does that. I have to mute you every time you join on Twitch.
Yeah, your sound went. Your sound went. I could tell
Thomas,
you were talking.
For naval vessels, you didn't really ever. We have so in the more modern times, the United States has a fairly high population relative to its military commitments. So, even if we only get the same percentage of personnel of people who sign enlistments, we can staff at much higher levels. Additionally, people don't squawk as much when you don't build X number of ships. They can squawk when you downsize multiple thousands of members out of the military, especially as all of those members notionally will be able to vote. As far as references to indentured servitude and slavery, that source of labor was not really used, especially in navies. In the Navy, a little bit more use in the Army, a little bit more use ashore, but a lot of it too is just the way U.S. social safety nets, the way U.S. employment is structured. It makes, because like if you do your stint in the military, I think after 4 years or 8 years, you have full medical benefits for the rest of your life and your dependents, which in America is huge. If you put 15 to 20 years in and you are part of the administration's favored type of people, you can get partial to full retirement, which is a pension for the rest of your life, and I think the rest of your spouse's life. You get access to advantageous home loans. You get and credit. There's a lot of benefits that make it attractive for people to join the military that aren't as relevant to some European nations, like healthcare. Most European nations have some level of national health system or socialized medicine. The U.S. doesn't at all, period. So, yeah, that's pretty much it, Thomas. It's, if you look at somebody who's flipping burgers for $7.15 an hour or $10 an hour now, it's a whole lot easier to induce them to enlist because they'll get the benefits. They won't have to worry about paying for food. They won't have to worry about paying for housing. And depending upon their MOS, they can come out of their contract with a career. And they'll also get preferential hiring practice in a lot of jobs.
Okay.
So it's easier. It's easier in some ways for the DoD to get manpower in the U.S. than it is for the Defense Department's equivalents in European countries because they can offer more relative to the common standard of living. I think that answers your question.
With that being said, and for some reason my mic has now gone incredibly quiet, and I have no idea why. There we go.
You're at about 80% of what you usually are. You're still quiet, but...
Okay, how's that sound? How's that?
No change from my last comment.
How's that sound?
A little better? Marginally?
Okay. I want a system which has actual proper dials, not these digital dials which you just dial round. I have no idea why it keeps resetting itself, but it's kind of like the camera's now flickering. It's annoying. Anyway, leaving it to one side.
So sorry, just to touch on AC-75s, the medical ones can be. You also have TRICARE, which is essentially health insurance, and a lot of the financial ones are just programs that you can file under.
Okay, right then. We are now moving on from that one because we've done a long time on American Manning, and we have a lot of questions to get through, and I enjoy getting through them, but we have to keep a certain pace up to get through them. Will you do any more games from Gregory Zukov? I'm on Twitch, regularly doing games. I presume that's a Twitch game. A Twitch one? Yes.
Is it for some like game events on the server, maybe, like you did for your 24-hour live stream?
Oh, there will be those during the 24-hour live stream and those things. As I said, there's going to be there's going to be events and there's going to be things done. The 24 this year, of course, the Historiathon is going to be 5 days of 12 hours a day, and then then a 36 hours. So it's going to be 96 hours overall in a week. Historiathon.
Do you have a date for that yet, right? I don't remember if you've set one yet.
Yeah, that's going to be. It's going to be the week of the 17th of November.
Perfect.
Is that the perfect of good? I can show up for that?
Yes. It means I can actually watch and chat it and every now and then.
It's going to be. It's basically going to be the whole week. It's basically going to. It's going to be the. 17th of November, 18th, 19th, 20th, 21st, and then the 22nd and 23rd is going to be the 36-hour one. It's going to be a nice long week, and that's going to be the week after I've hopefully given my talk in London. Right.
Huh?
So 2026 will be a week of 12 hours plus 96 hours to finish? No. No, but what it might sort of grow up to. How do I put this? Depending on how it goes and depending on how my recovery is, you might find it ends up being next year. The following year ends up being. Maybe me starting the continuous stream on the Friday and going all the way from Friday lunchtime to Sunday night. So doing 60 hours straight on that one and having done 48 hours prior to it, so doing 108 hours and those things. Maybe I do that one. Wayne's, what else? How have you done a video on gun barrel length implications? No, because actually no. At Year of Technology, I did a whole lot of videos about guns, so I probably did stuff then. But realistically, it's one of those things which changes from metallurgy over time as well. What's a short barrel versus a long barrel? And I've currently got a video coming up on destroyer guns, so that I'm re-recording about half of it. Because the first hour I'm kind of happy with, the second hour I want to re-record.
Useful.
Huh?
That could be very useful.
It's going through all the destroyer guns in World War II. And it's talking about them from a theoretical point of view of why the navies were getting the guns they were. I specifically do not have a comparison spreadsheet in there. Or comparison table. Because my theory is lots of people can do that. So I'm going to talk about the theory of why the navies were going for the guns they were going, what trade-offs they were prepared to get them. Because why the Italians have the guns they have is very different to why the Swedes are building the guns they have, despite them both having 127mm guns. Gregory Zukov, would it be better if the Revenge battleships had to be bigger, like on the Renown class hull, but have BB of the Revenge? Look, this is going to sound strange, but you have to remember the Renowns are you taking a Revenge class hull and you turn it into a battlecruiser. And that's what they did. They extended it, did all sorts of things, fun things with it, but that's basically what they did. They took the materials for three Revenge class battleships, and they modified them into 2 Renown class battlecruisers. Now, and then they had some guns left over, which they then used for other things. Now, the question of would have been better if the Revengers had been bigger, it would have been, would have been better if they'd been slightly bigger. You have to remember there is a differential between the two. In terms of their official displacements, this is official displacements. The Queen Elizabeth class are 27,500 tons for their standard displacement. The R class are 25,750 tons. So that means they are 1,750 tons lighter than a Queen Elizabeth. And I'd prefer them to be the full 27,500 tons myself. Myself, I'd have preferred to have gone with a 28,000 standard ton battleship and design, and got even better. Because I think for 28,000 tons, I could probably made a Queen Elizabeth class actually a 28 knot, actually at least a 25 knot ship, not probably a 25 knot ship. Eddie Rudolph, were there legal, or was it legal to buy or sell a warship like coastal defence with guns larger than 12-inch guns during the Naval Treaty era? Yes. It was legal to do it. You just had to tell everyone you were doing, and you had to post details and explain it, but you could do it. You could still sell people other warships. You just had to post the details of the ship, as in the standard space, etc., all those things. You couldn't build a ship which broke the standards of the treaty limits. Thank you. It seemed appropriate because I was doing some quick recordings today because everything was going up. So now, yeah, you're going to notice some Wednesday videos appear. Now I know when they go, other Wednesday videos will appear, and it'll be all the next 3 scuttlebutts will be arranged. Will be loaded up shortly as well, and all sorts of things will be done. It's going to be fun. So what's that? When did UK end the? When did England UK end the rotten boroughs? Ooh. Now, technically, it's not just rotten boroughs. They can also be called pocket boroughs, and pretty much they are ended mostly by the Act in 1832. Mostly. It was the Reform Act of 1832, which disenfranchised 56 of the boroughs. However, there have been some issues in that, how do I put this politely? The various parts of the UK today, some boroughs are again still to be declared as rotten boroughs because they have issues in that the way they're structured, it's felt that some boroughs, especially in the UK, produce guaranteed councillors, is what they're considered. Usually those are scenarios where the wards are uncontested in borough elections, which happens quite often. Believe it or not, there are quite, and there is uncontested can mean 2 things in UK local council elections. It can mean that the parties don't actually put up a candidate, but national parties like Labour, Lib Dems, Conservatives rarely will not put up a candidate in every single seat. I have been involved in this. You will go hunting around all your membership to find people to stick up in a seat, so you have a name on every ballot. Because it's important to contest every seat, because it shows your commitment to the borough. However, you have limited resources, and whether those names actually get any campaigning done for them more than a single leaflet put out, or the bare minimum so you've done some campaigning area, could be dependent upon your perception of your likelihood to win and your resources available. Conversely, in one of my previous campaign experiences where I was campaign manager, I was put as campaign manager in charge of the so-called paper candidates, because they were only supposed to be run paper, and I looked at the returns in the areas, and I managed to marshal my paper candidates well enough that whilst none of the target seats got elected, 2 of my paper candidates actually got elected. So the person who actually returned councils for that party in that borough was the guy who was running the campaigns of the paper candidates. So, it happens, okay? It happens. UK elections are, as I always try and explain to people, UK elections are very much retail politics. Especially local elections. They are very much retail politics. They can, people like to portray them as national politics, and they can be. But they're only going to be national politics if you sit on your behind and do nothing. With the size of our local, the usual ward constituencies, etc., it is very much retail politics. I.e., you can go meet people and chat to them face to face, knock on their doors and go, "Hello, what are you doing? How are you doing? I'm the local candidate. What are your problems in this area?" Oh, mine are those big speed bumps, or mine is the fact there's lack of bins on the rider paths, or those sort of things, or planning issues. Oh, no, we can't get solar panels. We can't get this. Oh, why can't you? And the amount of that's how you get elected in local politics in the UK. Which is why you then get people going and complaining, "Oh, we don't know how this person's got elected when they have no national support." And you go, because they wander around and talk to people, which is also why quite so many of our councils in the UK are retired. Because they wander around, they have the time and usually the bank balance to be able to wander around and spend their time wandering around and talking to people. Now, Wayne's World of Science and Technology. How many naval-rated shipyards are there in the UK currently? Submarines, Hull and Wolf, Camel Lairds, Rosyth, Govan, about 6. It's a bit iffy because there are some which are sites of others and components of others, so it's about 6. But it's an issue, essentially. Depends where you are in the UK on how effective solar panels are in the UK. I'm in Cornwall, so solar panels are incredibly effective in this part of the UK. But if you're in certain parts of the UK, good luck. Can I just do a sound check for the rest of the panel? Because I haven't heard you speaking for a while.
Yep. Hello.
Check.
Just
I
checking.
don't know, can you?
I am
That's good.
airbrushing and arguing in the comments.
Okay, that's good. Eddie Rudolph, if the British ever built battleships with 16 by 16-inch guns, and one in the class wasn't named which was Warspite, shouldn't someone be punished? Depends. Is their Warspite still in service the name for another ship in the class? Another ship in another class. That's the trouble. That's the scenario. You don't keep skipping Warspite up to a new class and renaming the old ship. So it's going to depend what else is in service and whether there's already a Warspite in service when that class is built. Dwayne Tapp, the Royal Navy has a history of cool names for ships, so why no Defiant or Reliant? Guess which sci-fi series well, actually, Reliant's often been used as various. Is actually being used for they have a Reliance, and originally they had a Resistance. They have considered Reliant quite a lot. As for Defiant, Again, I think it's because they have other names, which they have HMS Defiance. Yeah. I think it's because they have Reliance and Defiance. They don't have Reliant and Defiant, if that makes sense. That fits more with the British phraseology, Defiance and Reliance, than HMS Defiant or Reliant. It's just the phraseology thing going on, and how the British do their naming. Twin Tap, the wrong answer that one again. Yeah. No, you can't corrupt me. I don't need to, Wayne. I'm happy. I've got the Blackburn in my life. That's enough of interesting things.
What is Wayne trying to do?
Trying to introduce me into the folk music of fantasy and science fiction. Black Horse, how important were the Royal Navy?
Oh no, some of that stuff's really good.
And we've now lost Runon for at least the next few hours. How important were the Royal Navy, RNLI during the Battle of Britain World War II? Incredibly important. They were picking up a lot of people. They provided a lot of skilled people picking up a lot of people in various places. They were very useful. Wayne's World of Science and Technology. Have any French ships been lost due to damage from the Wise and Cheese store? No, but that has also caused many French crew to matter the phrase "murd" and go on a rampage. Luke Delport. Fun thing, which navy suffered more from deterioration in Napoleonic Wars? French, Spanish, or Dutch? French. French. The Spanish or Dutch don't kill nearly as many officers and NCOs as the French do, and that has an impact on your deterioration. The Spanish are actually still keeping fairly organised and fairly professional the whole way through. Black Horse, would you have done the fix in Model 1 of HMS Zubian or fix it another way? Putting HMS Zulu's bow onto the stern of HMS Nubian? Well, if it works and gives you a functioning ship, go for it. But it's going to be a very weird ship. And it did freak out the Germans and make them believe the Royal Navy had about 3 times as many destroyers as they actually had. They decided the Royal Navy had a secret destroyer yard which was manufacturing destroyers. It's always fun when they do that. When they go, yeah, the Royal Navy must have a secret yard manufacturing destroyers. And the Royal Navy goes, we wish we did.
Well, didn't you know that the Royal Navy can build a full, mid-weight fleet carrier in under 72 hours?
Don't they wish? French adopted Wayne's World of Science and Technology. French adopted shipboard electrics early. When was the first refrigerated plant installed on a warship? I've been asked this question before.
Define refrigeration. Because there were a lot of systems which just took the seawater and used that in radiators to cool spaces, like magazine spaces. So if that counts as refrigeration, the answer is probably rather early. If you're talking like actual, I am taking something like propane and compressing it and expanding it, heat pump systems, then that's going to be later. But I'd imagine that by the 30s, they were pretty common on at least the larger warships. Because otherwise you wouldn't really have ice cream ships and the like in World War II.
That is actually a really interesting question. I'm looking through my notes, and honestly, it depends on what type of refrigeration you're talking about. It really does. If we're talking about what we consider a modern refrigerating system, you are probably looking at about... Well, believe it or not, the first commercial ice making machine that could help you make other things was 1854. The first working vapor compression refrigeration system was 1834. And navies have been adding in refrigeration systems into their long-range ships for a long, long time. So there's actually a debate on this. So the honest answer is it's something I would actually have to dig into to try and find out the answer, and I'm not sure if anyone really does know the answer, because the first refrigeration systems were apparently installed by request of captains on their ships. So the question is, who do you think is going to be richer of the captains of ships of the various ships available in the 1850s, roughly? And who's going to want to install a refrigerated unit so badly they'll actually pay for it in the 1850s? Out of their own back pocket. I think it's probably going to be a British officer with those criteria. But I wouldn't like to say it. Now, I wouldn't say it as a definite answer now, because there are some pretty rich French and American officers wandering around. Senator, what is the weirdest precision you have seen? Measurements that make no sense in any measuring system, like the 138.6. So, here's the thing. There are some really weird weapon systems out there. Really, really weird measurements out there. And... ooh, what's the weirdest one? I think there was one of the aircraft in the 1920s had the bolts which were being used to hold its propeller onto the propeller hub and blades onto the mount from the engine had to be precisely 9.27 millimeters in diameter, and I think it's 92.7 millimeters in length. Just think about that.
Does that make more sense in inches by any
No.
chance?
It doesn't.
Okay.
Type it into inches and we'll see what it comes up as.
Too much effort, too lazy. Too millennial, too lazy.
That works as 3.649606 inches.
Ouch.
Or 0.036499606 inches. It was a French aircraft, if I remember correctly. Black Horse, was it possible for the US to not have... Of course, yeah. Was it possible for the US to not... No, this is from Black Horse. Was it possible for the US to not have entered World War I, and what would the outcome be? Well, it's possible for them to not enter World War I. It is. Realistically, it's... If they keep getting their ships sunk after they've made the statements they have, then they're going to look weaker and weaker and weaker. And the problem is they're then going to have to deal with the consequences of looking that weak. because it's going to be looked like, well, you're not a great power because in a nice way anyone can affront you and you won't do anything back, sort of thing. And that actually could make war more likely for them and in the interwar period, because people just don't think they actually do anything back. This is your problem ultimately as a nation. Okay, as I try and explain this on a regular basis, the reality of being a nation versus an individual. An individual can walk away and from a situation, especially one involving people who they don't meet in their day-to-day life and they don't regularly see, and it has virtually no consequences. It might have consequences for their ego, and they will have to live with that, but they can walk away. And it can be the sensible one for their lives, their existence perspective, because if they think they're going to be surrounded, fighting, and it's sensible to walk away. Okay? I think the person has a weapon, you're unarmed, walk away. Just walk away. It's safer. It's more sensible. Virtually no consequences. A nation state walking away is kind of like a heavyweight boxer walking away from another boxer when they've publicly challenged them in front of hundreds of cameras and hundreds of reporters. We can all imagine what happens to that person's career. It goes because of the perception. It's the same with nation states. The bigger you are, the tougher you're expected to be, and the harder you're expected to put up your fight. And whilst, yes, there is a chance to turn the other cheek, in the case of World War One, they turned it away too lately. They couldn't turn away anymore. They had to get involved somehow, and yeah. His stroke didn't occur till his stroke didn't occur till well after the war. That makes sense? I asked the panel because they're the ones closest to go, no, that sounded stupid, Alex. What were you thinking saying that?
No, that tracks.
Boxers were an okay analogy then.
Good enough.
Yeah. I was considering going hockey team, but that's a team sport and nations are far too individual for a team sport. And as we all know, the girls in a hockey team will never back away from a fight. They have sticks, they are running on adrenaline, and who knows what else. They are very prepared to use them, and usually their level of aggression once they have the stick in their hand on the hockey pitch are inversely proportional to their height. The smaller they are, the more likely they are to take you out with a whack to the head by accident, is what they claim. Black Horse. In Scapa Flow in Scotland, still naval base. If not, why? And why was it historically used about? Okay, it's a large anchorage area you can use for storing your fleet, but it's not really a place you can sustain. It's still, to an extent, an activable base if they wanted to use that for the facility, but they don't really need to use that kind of facility now. And Scapa Flow was an excellent place if you want to keep a fleet anchored and in a place they can easily go and practice and blast away at things and maintain their fighting business, while also being in a good position to blockade Europe and the North Sea. It's not realistically a good position for a modern fleet formation to be based from, but you could do it. But it's just a case of it's not what we probably run for. We probably want from a facility with more with more systems and more infrastructure at its support. But historically, its geographic position made a good one. Dragon 2000. How early could the Royal Navy have built HMS Amazon? Is there any technical and mechanical aspects slowing them down to the 20s, or could they have done so earlier if the Admiralty chose? Now, HMS Amazon, I'm presuming you're meaning the giant destroyer.
Yes, which eventually it and its half sister by can't remember the name off the top of my head. Eventually lead to the A class.
Yes. Well, technically, you could have built her a lot earlier. She's got Brown Curtis single reduction geared steam turbines. She's got 3 drum Yarrow type boilers, which have been around for a long time by this point. We're talking they've been around since prior to World War One. Realistically, there's no reason she couldn't have been built earlier. Ambuscade and Amazon are both good ships, but they are, they are basically a modernization of the W class. Because if you go look at the W class, you'll notice that they are mostly 3 Yarrow type water tube boilers, Brown Curtis steam turbines, 2 shafts.
Because I quite like the British standardized, we'll call them letter class, and how they go with that thing. So I was curious if they could have actually built them sooner, because they very much tend to stick to these more traditional destroyers for a lot longer, but then start producing multiple iterative series.
The thing
from
is,
the letters.
they could have done, but you see, you have to remember the Royal Navy goes into the interwar years with 67 V and W class and about 58 S class. And some Parker class, some Thornycroft type destroyer leaders as well. They have a fair number of those sitting around, and that's the other problem the British have. They have a lot of destroyers. They built a lot of destroyers during World War One. A lot of destroyers in World War One. Once you start looking at the destroyer classes they build in World War One, it's a lot of destroyers, and a lot of them are still in service in World War Two. Yeah,
and obviously the only way they could have done this was to have secret destroyer yards.
Yeah, well, and also nice way you have to remember the Germans actually estimated the British had more than they were declaring, and they were counting all the ones the British declared and more that the British must have because of Zubian. But yeah, they could have laid down earlier. Katsud, in your book, you mentioned the Daring class had electronic warfare capabilities. Now, I can't imagine it being much, but I can't recall you going into detail about that. Nope, I didn't. Katsud, in your Otto Malera 76 video, how many cans of Iron Brew did you have back there? Ooh. About 72. Black Horse, when did coastal blackouts were coastal blackouts first used, and were navigation aids affected by them, especially in war times? Coastal blackouts were a thing from basically Napoleonic eras onwards. They were trying to sort of consider coastal blackouts, etc. It is Napoleonic times sort of onwards when they're sort of considering and working on. It's an interesting thing of how much of an impact they actually have. But theoretically, the realistic thing is the coastal blackout is done for 2 things. One, it stops ships which are closer inshore being able to make out individual houses, etc. and target them. And 2, it means if someone is shining an artificial light out to sea to signal the smugglers or spies or submarine to come pick them up or something like that, it's going to stick out like a sore thumb. And navigational aids were often affected, and again, if you go back to the Age of Sail, there is often people will complain that buoys, etc., disappeared. That's buoys as in B-U-O-Y. Buoy. Would disappear, and other navigational aids might disappear.
Yeah, boy.
Again, nothing makes you sound older than when you try to sound young. Because
Who said I was trying to sound young? Also, in my defense, I had to work
reference.
6 tens this week.
In your defense, yeah, then just seriously, you're just giving Foxo ammunition.
Like Foxo doesn't already have enough of it that what little I give her makes any lick of difference?
Mm-hmm. 1981. So what was the French Durand-Viel's BCs? As in, Azur Lane's 7th English edition event, Secrets of Abyss, it was announced that Durand-Viel's second battlecruiser design, B, will be Masséna. Oh, good lord. No. You do realise this means that me and Drac will have to answer questions about the French battlecruisers. Who in their right mind has brought this route? Okay. So, the Durand-Viel battlecruiser, I don't think even his second design was actually his best design. Basically, there are 3 designs put forward early on about battlecruisers. One's by P. Gill and the other by Lieutenant Durand-Viel. That were completed in 1913. So, Durand-Viel's second design is 27,500 tons. It has 4 shaft with mixed-fired boilers. Anyone want to guess what mixed-fired boilers means?
Boiling oil.
Yeah.
Oh, no, not again.
8 370mm guns in 2 quad turrets, one either end of the ship, 28 138.6mm guns, and 4 18-inch torpedo tubes. And it could do up to 27 knots. And that was their battle cruiser design. And how do I put this politely? So, the A, to get the difference from the A to the B, right? The A was originally the A was armed with 340mm guns, 8 of them, and they had a belt of 270mm. To keep the displacement the same at 27,500 tons, but take the 8 370mm guns, they reduced the belt armor. They reduced the armor thickness and coverage. So it starts out as roughly 11 inches of armour, 10.6 inches of armour in most places, and it gets less.
Paul, just remember that they didn't let me out of the coal mines until I was 21, and that's not as much of an exaggeration as I'd like it to be.
Black Horse, how often do German warships have to run away from slow battleships? Basically, the history of Scharnhorst and Gneisenau is them seeing an R-class and them avoiding an R-class by keeping away from the R-class. And the R-class going, come closer! Because whilst they could win a fight with an R-Class, in fact, both of them combined can definitely win a fight with an R-Class, the R-Class will do probably enough damage before it gets sunk that they will not be getting home. And that's the whole point. That's the whole risk-reward scenario. Is this convoy, is what we can kill in this one convoy, worthwhile us sacrificing 2 capital ships? Because we will win the fight. Will we win the fight fast enough to destroy the convoy as it's scattering? Probably not, but they're going to have to try and catch the convoy and catch up with it. And while we're doing that, the British are going to be herring across with everything they've got to catch us. And the trouble is, what's going to come charging in is going to be able to beat us. Richard Gross, you have 5 minutes to explain to Keir Starmer why we need to really grow the fleet. What would you say to drum home the problem? Okay, I would say that better people than me have tried for a lot longer than that to drum home the argument, but if I was going to, I'd go, do you like to eat? Do you like to have access to modern electronics? Do you like the global economy working the way you're used to? And being able to rely on these things. If you do, you need a navy to keep the global trade going, to keep all these things moving around the world. That's it. That's a simple answer. Britain is not large enough to be able to produce everything it needs itself domestically. We just aren't. So we need to import stuff and export stuff to pay for it. That's it. And it's not just importing services and not just exporting services. We need to actually import and export real goods. Energy. Food. All these things. You need ships. You need ships to maintain this. It's also useful to have it for the diplomatic stuff when you want to have presence around the world, because it's far easier to stop wars before they become wars than it is to stop them once they start. Once they start, they're messy and everyone digs in. Before they've started, there's actual wiggle room. Black Horse. How often were tugboats, I'm guessing, are used in where they kept in relation to operational areas? There are often fleet tugboats not far from operational areas, because you really want some tugs around in case of things like, well, ships getting damaged and needing a tow, because a tugboat is actually designed to do towing. Cruisers and destroyers will, in a pinch, tow something bigger themselves, and do it. But realistically, they're not designed for that. So it's better to have an actual proper tugboat there, because a tugboat's designed for it, and it has the horsepower and all the engines, everything is designed for the weight and the strain.
And if you're Russians, the fleet tugs are part of the task force.
So they're also, I know that's the joke we put around, but also traditionally they were part of the support task force for most of the navies in the Pacific Fleet, and these things, they're usually not far away. It's unusual today and peacetime for a navy to be sailing around the world with a tugboat with it. But there again, for the Russians, you consider the embarrassment if they have to hire a tug from the Dutch or any of those, the big companies around the world, which they would, or the American or the Brits own companies around the world which have tugboats. Sorry. This is going to sound strange, but yeah. I do not know how this is, but somehow corky fluff gets on the inside of these earphones. And suddenly at some point I feel my ear getting sort of almost tickled with the headphones. And so I don't have to stick a finger in there and pull out. And literally what I'm pulling out is not earwax or anything like that. No. It's corky fluff. And I do not know. I keep these in a box. I keep these boxed up when the corgi's in here. I do not know how they get corky fluff on them, but they do. And then the corgi fluff gets in my ear. Corgi fluff, it gets everywhere. Seriously. Okay. Polemus, what if any developments the RN or associated companies doing that is ahead of the rest of the world that you can say about? The RN doesn't talk about stuff until they're fairly certain it will deliver. This is the thing about the Royal Navy. So you will never realistically know what's necessary is quite a long way ahead. But one of the things I will point out is that the Royal Navy has been pushing very hard recently on extra large uncrewed undersea vehicles. And they don't tend to push on things until they're certain. Okay. Mods, keep an eye on Roger Brazier. They are being naughty in chat. They are sailing very close to the wind. Very close to
In
the
mind
wind.
that this is a PG or PG-13 stream, and while
It's funny.
I have my opinions about that joke,
I'm giggling at it, but very close to the wind. Very close to the wind. Very close to the wind sailing. But I do have little cousins still watching, apparently. Because I haven't been sent the all clear yet. Lions, how often were naval shells used as aerial bombs and how effective were they compared to the purpose-made bombs? Okay, it's actually more of a widespread thing than just the Japanese, because when you're making the initial bombs and you want something quickly, you just adapt to shell design. But, yeah. You can always ask a build. You can ask a build question and stuff. It's Bruships. You can ask a build question. That's the whole point. Build. Yeah, that's the whole point, really. But as effectiveness, purposely designed bombs are better. If you're using naval shells, you need to try and do a dive bombing style maneuver, or at least a toss bomb maneuver, to try and make sure it lands where it's going to in a way it's going to detonate properly. Kamikaze. Hypothetically, World War III, an offensive mine laying at checkpoints is commercial warfare? Oh yeah, there'll be mine laying going on. In nicest way, I would not be surprised if there is, well, how do I put this? A version of the captor mine system, which is technically it's out of source, but yeah, I would not be surprised if there is maybe an evolved version of the captor. An evolved version of the captor. There are things which are evolved things which are looking at improved versions of these things, and I would not be surprised if you have them systems developed and to basically.
Hello and welcome to the channel.
Oh, good lord, that start off.
Time here, and I hope you're going to have a lot of fun.
Thank you for following the channel.
And please,
I thought I turned it off.
subscribe so there's more people here to have more fun.
Thank you, Livy.
Thank you and take care.
Thank you. I'm going to have a conversation with that sound alert. Oh, I'm going to have a conversation with that system. Yeah, it's going to have to be. Something's going to happen. And it's still going. Why does it repeat it 4 times? I'm going to have a conversation with the sound alert system and go, no, you don't repeat it 4 times. But leaving that to one side, yeah, the captor mines, a captor mine system which can be designed and focused in on things like certain engine signatures, etc. I would not be surprised if that's sort of developed. Or some sort of system which allows you to send a signal back to home by satellite buoy and goes, this is what I'm listening to. Do I engage this target? And you go, yeah, take that.
E.T. go home.
It would be a sensible way to have it and have it a sort of remote control system, because then you could have someone actually in the loop going, yeah. But the problem is going to be if someone takes out your satellite communication system, or if it's in some way, then you're going to have issues.
Listen, Wayne, to quote the Hitchhiker's Guide, in the beginning, God created the universe. This has been widely criticized as a really bad idea,
Yeah.
and no one has been happy about it.
Anyway, Dragon, you there? There's Dragon still here, because me and him need to be
Go on.
going soon.
Go on, because it is now 11
It's
o'clock.
only
Go
11
on.
o'clock, to be fair.
Yep.
But fair.
Yeah, go on.
But thanks for having us.
Take care. I'm now going into the sound alert system so I can turn off the sound alert before it gets annoying. Right then. Yes, logging in. My alerts. Other alerts. New follow. Yes, I know an error's occurred. It keeps repeating itself. Yeah, that should hopefully do it. And that should sort that out. And that should sort that out. For some reason, I have nothing enabled for subscription tier 2, and I don't know why. Yeah. Right, hopefully that is fixed. Oh, good lord, stop it. Oh, why is it doing on multiple things? Sorry everyone about this one. This is annoying me and annoying everyone. Well, I think it's annoying everyone else. I'm going to presume it's annoying me. It's, for some reason, it's got itself into a loop. Okay, that should be done. Oh, good lord, it's doing it again. Ay, caramba. Okay, I am disabling all sound alerts for some reason. And I will rebuild them. I will say bot off. And questions live goes down. And yeah. Why does it keep coming through? Go away, system. That's obviously, yeah. This is the thing. Twitch sometimes does really annoy me on these things. I'm going to have to deactivate sound alerts as an extension. I have literally deactivated it as an extension. And it's still going. Okay, sorry, I'm going to do something a little bit naughty. I'll be back in a second, Twitch. Should have worked. No, it hasn't worked. It's still going. Oh, Runon, just speak loudly for a few minutes and hopefully that gets rid of it. I don't know. These things sometimes they have them and you use it and go, yeah, stop causing me trouble.
No, LV, don't do that.
What's that LV
That will
doing?
not. Wants to unfollow and refollow.
No, please don't.
Just provoke the alerts again.
No. Is it just for you? It's not live stream, so it's just for you, just me hearing it. Is
I
it
don't
just
have your stream audio up. I just have my own.
you're not getting this audio? It's slow water torture by my own voice. Anyway. So, Runon, I'm going to apologise quickly for a second because I have literally muted my whole computer. Which means it should disappear. It should stop repeating itself. Because there's now no sound for it to pick up. No sound at all. You can hear on YouTube, but not hear on Twitch. Well, I've muted the computer, so I can't hear Runon for a bit, but I've literally muted the computer. Which should cut it out. Which should cut it out. Sometimes that's what you have to do. You literally have to mute things and just wait for it to disappear completely. With that being said, let's go on to the next question. Let's go on to the questions because that's more interesting than this, than me keep having an argument with the computer over these things. Over the fact it's got stuck in a data loop of Twitch updates,
Hi,
which
welcome
it's
to the
going
channel.
to. I'm going to have to go through and just reprogram the sound alerts and just get rid of them after I turn off Twitch later on. And now, Wayne's World of Science and Technology. For fictional examples of explosive shells against wood, see a Safe Home series by David Weber. No idea how accurate, but he is a historian. It's It's not that bad. It's not bad. I think it's still coming through.
Can you tell what it's sourcing from?
For Mark Harkness, suppose after Guadalcanal, the IJN decided not to push their remaining trained pilots into Solomon Woodchipper and order them for carriers. Can they get better results at the Philippine Sea? Yes, but they also have a problem. What do you do Guadalcanal at all? If you're not sending in AS support, if you're not sending in those increased aircraft, do you do Guadalcanal? Do you do it? Or don't you? And that's going to be the thing. Do you do it or don't you? That's the option. Do you, if you're not doing it, do you do it? Do you actually do these things again? Now, I've decided that maybe it was the audio capture device. We'll see if that works. No, that's still getting something coming from somewhere.
I'm glad I'm not the only one that can have audio troubles on a live stream.
Yeah, still coming through. I have no idea. It's got stuck in the system. It's still going through. It's weird. I basically have to mute you to stop it going through. I have no idea where it's coming from. I presume it's one of the automated bots on Twitch.
Okay, is it the same phrase or
Yes.
is it?
It's literally it's the audio where I welcome people as a new audio which I use to welcome people on Twitch. Hello.
Okay, it's good. Then it's not me.
No, it's me talking to me.
You know, it's fine to talk to yourself, just as long as you understand yourself.
Yeah, it's
When
really
you don't understand yourself, that's when you need to start getting concerned.
It's really annoying though. Really annoying. Gonna have them muted again. So sorry, Runon's muted as well.
No.
Hey, bygone. Let's get back to the questions. It's more. We'll get through the questions, and hopefully, eventually, it manages to get rid of it, to sort itself out. The other option is I turn off OBS and restart OBS, but we'll leave that to one side. What is your opinion on the CGN-42 or CGN project? Why didn't they build at least one cruiser to replace Long Beach? Do you think the US regretted the decision to cancel the project? They did regret the decision to cancel Long Beach, to cancel the successor. And why didn't they build a strike cruiser? Honestly, because people saw the world as being peaceful, so they could do it. Muting Runon doesn't end it, sadly, no. But pretty much, if you have... with the system we're talking about in terms of the US Navy cruisers, the thing is, they thought they were moving into a monopolar world. Not a multipolar world. And They thought they were going to always be dominant. And so they did. They went that way. And yeah, now Twitch is just... It basically, it's Twitch mucking around. It is Twitch mucking around, to say. And that's causing the trouble. It's Twitch and OBS. Between them, they can muck up all sorts of things. They really can. Give them half a chance. Give them half a chance and they can muck up things. I could be really naughty. In fact, I'm going to be really naughty for a second. I do apologize.